I stood at the entrance of Grandview Manor, the elegant venue I'd paid $30,000 to rent for our family reunion. My hands trembled as I read the mocking text from my mother. "Where are you? The reunion was yesterday. Don't worry, we'll bring you leftovers." The parking lot was empty. The staff looked confused. After 2 years of planning and paying for everything myself, my entire family had deliberately held the reunion without me. What they didn't know was that I'd already made a phone call that would change everything. The phone call that changed my life came on a rainy Tuesday morning in Denver. I was reviewing investment portfolios for my clients when my assistant knocked on my office door. Her face carried that particular expression people wear when delivering news about death. "Cheyenne, there's a call for you. It's about your grandmother." Grandmother Rose had passed away in her sleep 3 days ago. The funeral was tomorrow. Nobody in my family had bothered to tell me until the funeral home realized one name was missing from the family contact list. Mine. I hadn't spoken to my parents, Barbara and Frank, or my siblings Madison and Tyler in 5 years. The estrangement wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was a slow erosion of respect boundaries, crossed once too often, money borrowed but never returned, and cruel words disguised as jokes. The final straw came when they accused me of thinking I was better than them because I'd gotten my degree and moved to Denver for my career. The 3-hour drive to Millbrook, Colorado felt like traveling backward through time. Each mile closer to my hometown tightened the knot in my stomach. I'd built a good life in Denver. I had a successful career as a financial advisor, a cozy apartment with mountain views and friends who actually celebrated my achievements instead of resenting them. The funeral home was exactly as I remembered it, all somber burgundy carpets and the faint smell of lilies. My family clustered near the casket, their backs turned to me. Madison saw me first, her perfectly manicured eyebrows rising in surprise. She whispered something to our mother, and Barbara's head snapped around. "Well, look who decided to show up," Barbara said, her voice carrying across the room. "Too busy making money to visit your grandmother while she was alive." I bit back my response. This wasn't the place. Instead, I walked to the casket and looked down at Grandmother Rose. She seemed peaceful, finally free from the family drama that had surrounded her final years. After the service, as mourners filed out, a man in an expensive suit approached me. "Miss Cheyenne Brooks, I'm Arthur Wallace, your grandmother's attorney. She left specific instructions that I was to speak with you privately." My family watched with narrowed eyes as Wallace led me to a small office. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Grandmother Rose's shaky handwriting. "Your grandmother updated her will 6 months ago," Wallace explained. "She was very specific about her wishes. This letter is for you alone. There's also this." He set up a tablet and pressed play on a video. Grandmother Rose appeared on the screen, sitting in her favorite chair, looking directly at the camera. "My dear Cheyenne," her voice was stronger than I'd heard it in years. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone, and you're probably wondering why I asked Arthur to find you. I know your family has hurt you. I've watched it happen, and I'm ashamed I didn't speak up sooner. But I'm speaking up now." She paused, adjusting her glasses. "I'm leaving you something, bub, but it comes with conditions. You'll find the details in the letter. What I need you to understand is that this isn't about money. It's about family. Not the family that shares your blood, but the family you choose to keep in your life. Sometimes we need to see people's true colors before we can make that choice." The video ended. I opened the letter with shaking hands. The inheritance was $2.5 million. The conditions seemed simple enough: organize and pay for a family reunion within 2 years, inviting every member of the Brooks family. If I succeeded in bringing the family together, the money was mine. If I failed, it would go to charity. "There's more," Wallace said quietly. "Your grandmother suspected that your parents have been less than honest about their financial dealings with her. She asked me to watch for certain signs. This reunion condition isn't just about bringing family together. She believed it would reveal people's true natures. I returned to the main room where my family waited. Frank stepped forward, trying to look paternal. What did the lawyer want? Grandmother left me something, I said carefully, but there are conditions. I need to organize a family reunion. The room erupted. Madison laughed sharply. You organize a family reunion. You can't even bother to call on birthdays. How much money? Tyler cut straight to the point, his eyes greedy. That's private, I said. Barbara's face flushed red. Private. We're your family. That money belongs to all of us. Mother was probably confused when she made that will. The will is completely legal, Wallace interjected, appearing in the doorway. Mrs. Rose was of sound mind when she made these arrangements. Frank grabbed my arm. You listen to me, young lady. Whatever Mother left you will be contesting it. You abandoned this family. I pulled free from his grip. I'll organize the reunion. Everyone will be invited. What happens after that is up to you. As I drove back to Denver that night, I realized Grandmother Rose had given me more than money. She'd given me a chance to expose my family for who they really were. The condition wasn't about reconciliation. It was about revelation. I started planning the next day. First, I created a family reunion website with a countdown timer. 730 days to bring the Brooks family together. I sent save the dates to all 47 members of our extended family, from distant cousins to great aunts. The responses varied. Some relatives I hadn't heard from in years seemed genuinely excited. Others, particularly those close to my parents, sent messages dripping with false sweetness, fishing for information about the inheritance. Uncle Robert Frank's brother called within a week. Cheyenne's sweetheart. How wonderful that you're organizing this reunion. Your father mentioned something about Mother's will. I hope she took care of you. Nothing too overwhelming. I hope managing large sums can be so difficult for young people. It's a modest amount, I lied smoothly. Just enough to cover the reunion expenses and maybe pay off my car. I could practically hear his disappointment through the phone. Oh, well, that's nice. Mother always was practical. As I hung up, I made a note in my planning journal. The first trap was set. Let them think the inheritance was small. Their true natures would reveal themselves eventually. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. We need to talk about Mom and Dad. They're not handling Grandma's death well, or this whole reunion thing. Call me. I stared at the message. Madison had never cared about my calls before. The game was beginning, and everyone was choosing their positions. What they didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for 5 years. Every slight, every cruel word, every manipulation had taught me who they really were. Now it was time to let them teach everyone else. 6 months into planning the reunion, I'd established a routine. Every morning, I'd spend an hour working on reunion details before heading to my office. I'd already booked Grandview Manor, Millbrook's most prestigious venue, for a date 18 months away. The catering menu was selected, photographers hired, and a professional event coordinator named Janet was helping me manage logistics. My phone rang during lunch on a Wednesday. The caller ID showed Jenny, my cousin from my father's side. We'd been close as children, but like everything else in my family, that relationship had been poisoned by my parents' influence. Cheyenne, it's Jenny. Do you have a minute to talk? Of course. How are you? There was a pause. I'm fine. Listen, I need to tell you something. Last Sunday at dinner, your mom was talking about the reunion and, well, about you. My stomach tightened. What did she say? She said you stole money from them before you left for Denver, that you took $20,000 from their retirement account, and that's how you afforded your apartment deposit and moving expenses. The accusation was so outrageous, I actually laughed. Jenny, I left home with $3,000 I'd saved from working double shifts at the restaurant. I slept on a friend's couch for 2 months before I could afford my own place. I know, I suspected. It didn't sound like you, but Cheyenne, everyone believes her. She cries when she tells the story, says that's why they couldn't help with Grandma's medical bills last year. The pieces clicked into place. My parents had been stealing from Grandmother Rose, and they needed a cover story. Who better to blame than the daughter who wasn't there to defend herself? Well, then thank you for telling me, I said. Jenny, do you know exactly what medical bills they're talking about? Something about a special treatment that insurance wouldn't cover. Why? Because Grandmother Rose had excellent insurance that covered everything I thought, but I kept that to myself. Just curious. Hey, I hope you're planning to come to the reunion. Wouldn't miss it, Jenny said warmly. And Cheyenne, I'm sorry I believed them for even a minute. After we hung up, I called Wallace' grandmother's attorney. I need you to check something. My parents claim they paid for medical bills that Grandmother's insurance didn't cover. Can you verify that? I'll look into it immediately, he assured me. That evening, I decided to call my mother directly. The phone rang 4 times before she answered. What do you want? No hello, no pretense of civility. I heard an interesting story about me stealing money from you and Dad. Silence stretched between us before Barbara spoke. It's not a story. You took that money. We both know that's a lie. Do we? You always thought you were so much better than us. Too good for your family. It would be just like you to take what you needed and leave. Mom, I have bank records. I can prove exactly how much money I had when I left. Forged, she said quickly. Too quickly. You work in finance. You know how to manipulate documents. The accusation was so bold, so confident, that I realized she'd been rehearsing this. She'd created an entire narrative where I was the villain, and she'd told it so many times she might even believe it herself. Why are you doing this? I asked. Doing what? Telling the truth, someone has to. You swan back into town, manipulate your grandmother into leaving you, God knows how much money, and expect us all to dance to your tune. Well, I've got news for you, Cheyenne. This family sees right through you. The reunion is happening whether you like it or not, I said calmly. 18 months from now, every member of the Brooks family will be invited to gather at Grandview Manor. What happens there is up to you. We get Grandview Manor, she sputtered. Do you have any idea how much? Where is this money coming from? Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and immediately opened my laptop. If my family wanted to play games, I'd make sure everything was documented. I created a new email account specifically for reunion planning and BCC'd myself on every communication. Every phone call would be followed up with an email summary. Every expense would be tracked. Within a week, the extended family email chains were buzzing. Uncle Robert forwarded me a message, probably by accident, where Barbara detailed my supposed crimes. According to her version, I'd not only stolen money, but also convinced Grandmother Rose to change her will through manipulation and elder abuse. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were accusing me of exactly what they'd done. Wallace called with his findings. Your parents never paid a cent toward your grandmother's medical care. In fact, there are some concerning discrepancies in her accounts. Regular cash withdrawals that coincide with your parents' visits. Your grandmother noted them in her journal. She kept a journal. Meticulously, she documented everything in her final years. I think she knew something was wrong but felt trapped. Your parents were her primary caregivers. I thought of Grandmother Rose, sharp-minded until the end, watching her own children steal from her while playing the devoted caregivers. The reunion wasn't just her gift to me. It was her revenge on them. The reunion website I'd created became my weapon of choice. I posted regular updates, photos from venue tours, sample menus from the caterers. Every post emphasized how excited I was to bring our family together. The comment section became a battlefield of passive aggression. Madison wrote, "How wonderful that you can afford such an expensive venue. Some of us are still struggling after helping with Grandma's care." I responded, "Family is worth any investment. I'm honored to do this in Grandmother Rose's memory." Tyler added, "Hope the fancy party is worth destroying your family." My reply, "I hope this reunion brings us all closer together." Each exchange was public. Extended family members could see the hostility directed at me and my consistently positive responses. Slowly, the narrative my parents had built began to crack. Cousin David, a successful attorney in Kansas City, called me privately. "I'm watching this unfold on the website. Your parents are showing their true colors. Need any legal help?" "Not yet," I said, "but stay tuned." 3 months before the reunion date, I flew back to Colorado to meet with vendors. Janet, the event coordinator, walked me through Grandview Manor, discussing table arrangements and timeline. The venue was perfect, all soaring ceilings and mountain views. "This is quite an event you're planning," Janet observed. "Family reunions can be tricky, so many dynamics at play." "You have no idea," I muttered. As I left the venue, I spotted a familiar car in the parking lot. Tyler's rusty pickup truck. He was sitting inside watching the building. When he saw me, he didn't try to hide. Instead, he got out and walked over. "Quite a place," he said. "Must be costing a fortune." "It's worth it for family." "Cut the crap, Cheyenne. We know Grandma left you millions. This whole reunion thing, it's just you rubbing our faces in it." "Is that what you think?" "It's what I know, but here's the thing, big sister. Grandma wasn't in her right mind at the end. We've got witnesses who will say she was confused, manipulated. That will can be overturned." "Good luck with that," I said, walking to my rental car. "We don't need luck," Tyler called after me. "We've got family, real family, blood that sticks together. You've got money. Let's see which one wins." As I drove away, I realized Tyler had just revealed their plan. They'd contest the will after the reunion, claiming that elder abuse and mental incompetence. They thought they had time to build their case, gather their witnesses, and paint me as the manipulative granddaughter who isolated a confused old woman. What they didn't know was that Grandmother Rose had anticipated this too. The video Wallace had shown me was just the beginning. There were more recordings, more evidence. The reunion wasn't just a condition of the will, it was a trap, and my family was walking right into it. I smiled as I drove back to Denver. Let them think they were winning. Let them believe their lies and schemes would work. In 12 months at Grandview Manor, everyone would learn the truth. The planning continued, and with each passing day, the stakes grew higher. But I was ready. Grandmother Rose had taught me well. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. Sometimes it's served at a family reunion with artisanal catering and mountain views. The call came at exactly the wrong moment. I was presenting quarterly reports to my biggest client when my phone buzzed insistently. Madison's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it and continued my presentation, but the phone immediately rang again and again. "I apologize," I told Mr. Harrington. "Family emergency. Do you mind if I take this?" He waved me on, and I stepped into the hallway, already dreading whatever drama Madison was manufacturing. "What's wrong?" I answered. "I'm in Denver," Madison announced. "At your building. The security guy won't let me up without your permission. Tell him I'm your sister." My mind raced. Madison lived 4 hours away and had never once visited me in Denver. "Why are you here?" "Can we not do this through an intercom? I drove all this way to help with the reunion planning. The least you can do is let me into your apartment." Every instinct screamed danger, but refusing would give her ammunition to use against me. "Put him on!" 5 minutes later, Madison stood in my living room, her designer heels clicking on my hardwood floors as she surveyed my space. Her nose wrinkled slightly, and I could see her calculating, comparing my modest apartment to whatever story she'd built in her head about my supposed wealth. "Nice place," she said in a tone that meant the opposite. "Smaller than I expected, considering." "Considering what?" "Oh, nothing." She dropped her oversized purse on my couch. "So where's all the reunion planning stuff? I thought we could go over everything together." "Madison, why are you really here?" Her perfectly glossed lips curved into a smile. "Can't a sister visit?" "It's been 5 years, Cheyenne. I thought maybe it was time we moved past all that old drama." I studied her face, looking for the trap. Madison had never done anything without an agenda. "Okay, let's talk, but I have to get back to work soon." "Of course, your precious job." She wandered toward my kitchen. Mind if I make some coffee? The drive was exhausting. While she busied herself with my coffee maker, I quickly texted Marcus, my boyfriend of 8 months. Madison showed up at my apartment. Something's off. His response was immediate. Want me to come by after work? Please. Madison returned with 2 mugs, handing me one. So tell me about the reunion plans. I saw on the website you booked Grandview Manor. Pretty fancy. It's what grandmother would have wanted. Is it what you want? A big, flashy display of how successful you are. I set down my mug untouched. What do you want, Madison? I want to help. Mom and Dad are being impossible about this whole thing. Tyler's losing his mind. Someone needs to be the voice of reason. And that's you. Why not look? I know we've had our differences, but we're still sisters. And honestly, I'm tired of Mom's drama. The lies she's spreading about you, it's embarrassing. This was new. Madison criticizing Barbara. I kept my expression neutral. What lies? Oh, come on, the whole theft story, please. We all know you left with basically nothing. I was there, remember? You wore the same 3 outfits for a month before you left. The admission caught me off guard. Madison had never acknowledged the truth before. She continued, I think what Mom's really mad about is that you succeeded without them, without any of us. It kills her that you didn't need them. Is that what you think? It's what I know. Madison leaned forward, suddenly intense. Cheyenne, I'm trying to extend an olive branch here. The reunion is in 9 months. Do you really want to face the whole family alone? Let me help. I can handle Mom and Dad, smooth things over. Every word sounded reasonable, but Madison had been trained by the best manipulators I knew. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. She stood, smoothing her dress. I should go. I got a room at the Brown Palace. Maybe we can have dinner tomorrow. You could bring that boyfriend of yours. Marcus, right? I'd love to meet him. Warning bells chimed in my head. How did she know about Marcus? We'd been careful to keep our relationship off social media, away from my family's prying eyes. How do you know about Marcus? Oh, Mom hired someone, some private investigator. Don't look at me like that. I told her it was crazy, but you know how she is when she gets an idea in her head. The casual admission of stalking delivered with a shrug reminded me exactly who I was dealing with. I see. So dinner tomorrow, 8 o'clock. I'll let you know. After she left, I called building security and removed her from the approved visitor list. Then I called Marcus. A private investigator. His voice was tight with anger. That's insane. That's my family. Can you come over? I need to figure out what Madison's really after. Marcus arrived within an hour, bringing takeout from our favorite Thai place. We sat on the couch where Madison had perched earlier, and I told him everything. She's up to something, he agreed. The question is what? We didn't have to wait long to find out. 3 days later, Marcus called me from his gym, his voice shaking with rage. You're not going to believe what just happened. Madison showed up here, at my gym, in workout clothes that looked like they'd never seen actual exercise. My blood ran cold. What did she do? She accidentally bumped into me, apologized profusely, then suggested we get smoothies to make up for it. When I said no, she got aggressive. Started saying things about how you're too controlling, how I deserve someone who appreciates me. She didn't. Oh, it gets better. When I tried to leave, she grabbed my arm and said, Cheyenne doesn't have to know. I'm much more fun than my sister. Fury rose in my throat. Please tell me you have witnesses. Better. The gym has security cameras. I already talked to the manager. He's pulling the footage. That evening, I met Madison at the Brown Palace bar. She'd texted earlier, all fake sweetness suggesting we have that dinner after all. She didn't know I'd already seen the gym security footage Marcus had forwarded. Cheyenne, she waved from a corner booth. I ordered us wine, the good stuff. I sat across from her, studying the sister I'd once shared everything with. When had she become this person? Or had she always been this way and I'd been too young to see it? How was your day? I asked casually. Boring. Went to some museum, did some shopping. The lie rolled off her tongue like honey. How's Marcus? You never did say if he could join us. He's fine, busy with work. All work and no play, she sipped her wine. You know, I ran into the strangest thing today. This woman at the hotel spa was talking about her divorce. She said her husband cheated with his girlfriend's sister. Can you imagine the betrayal? The threat was delivered with a smile, but the message was clear. I leaned back, matching her casual tone. That would be terrible. Good thing Marcus isn't like that. He has this thing about honesty. Shows me everything. Texts, emails, even security footage when something weird happens. Total open book. Madison's smile flickered for just a moment. Security footage. Oh yeah, his gym has cameras everywhere. For safety, you know. They keep the footage for 30 days. He likes to review his forms sometimes. The color drained from her face as she realized I knew. Cheyenne, Stop. I stood, pulling out enough cash to cover the wine. Whatever game you're playing, it's over. Go home, Madison. And if you ever come near Marcus again, the next conversation we have will include lawyers. You always were too sensitive, she snapped, the mask finally dropping. Can't even take a joke. Attempting to seduce my boyfriend is a joke. Proving he's not good enough for you is a favor. She stood too wobbly in her heels. You think you're so perfect with your fancy job and your loyal boyfriend, but you're still the same scared little girl who ran away because she couldn't handle real life. Real life? You mean lying, stealing, and manipulating everyone around you. You're right, I couldn't handle that. I chose something better. You chose to abandon your family. I chose to save myself. We stood there in the elegant bar, two sisters separated by more than years and miles. The other patrons pretended not to notice the tension crackling between us. Madison grabbed her purse. When this all falls apart, when the family turns on you at the reunion, when Marcus realizes what you really are, don't come crying to me. You had your chance to have me on your side. I'll take my chances. She stormed out, her heels clicking angrily across the marble floor. I sank back into the booth, my hands shaking with adrenaline and old pain. My phone buzzed. Marcus, how did it go? About as expected. She threatened to destroy our relationship if I didn't play along with whatever scheme they're cooking up. Want me to come get you? I smiled at his protectiveness. No, I'm okay, but I think it's time we installed that security system at the apartment. Already ordered it. Being delivered tomorrow? That night, as Marcus held me, I told him the whole story. Every painful memory, every manipulation, every reason I'd run to Denver and never looked back. They're going to get worse as the reunion gets closer, he warned. I know, but I'm not that scared girl anymore, and I'm not facing them alone this time. The next morning, I called Wallace. I need to update you on some developments. My family is escalating their tactics. I've been expecting this. Your grandmother warned me they might become desperate as the reunion approached. She left instructions for this possibility. What kind of instructions? Let's just say she was a very thorough woman who knew her family well. Document everything, Miss Brooks. Every interaction, every threat, every scheme. When the time comes, we'll need a clear pattern of behavior. I thought about the security footage of Madison at the gym, the recording I'd made of her threats at the bar, the emails and texts piling up in my evidence folder. Don't worry, I told him. I'm my grandmother's granddaughter. I'm documenting everything. 6 months until the reunion. The games were accelerating, but I was ready. Madison had shown her hand. Too early tried to destroy the one pure thing in my life. She'd failed, but the attempt told me everything I needed to know. My family wasn't just planning to contest the will. They were trying to isolate me, break me down, make me vulnerable before the final confrontation. But they'd made a crucial error. They still saw me as the quiet girl who'd fled to Denver. They didn't know the woman I'd become. The security system Marcus installed wasn't just for protection, it was for evidence. Every move they made would be recorded, documented, and filed away. Let them come. Grandmother Rose had set the board, and I was ready to play. 3 months before the reunion, my carefully orchestrated plans began unraveling in ways that seemed almost coincidental. Almost. The first call came on a Monday morning as I was reviewing client portfolios. Janet, my event coordinator, sounded frantic. "Cheyenne, we have a problem. Grandview Manor just called. They're saying you canceled the reservation." What? I nearly dropped my coffee. I didn't cancel anything. That's what I told them, but they have an email from your account with a formal cancellation. They've already booked another event for that date. My hands went cold. "Forward me everything. I'll call you back." The email was perfect, sent from an address almost identical to mine with my full name and even my standard signature. Only the domain was slightly different. One letter off, easy to miss unless you were looking for it. I immediately called Grandview Manor, but the manager was apologetic yet firm. They'd already signed contracts with the other party. The best they could offer was an alternate date 3 weeks later. "That won't work," I explained. "The invitations have already been sent. People have booked travel." "I understand this is frustrating, but the cancellation came from your email." "It came from a fake email designed to look like mine." Silence on the other end then. "I'm sorry, but without proof of fraudulent activity, our hands are tied." I hung up and called Wallace. Within an hour, he'd filed fraud complaints and begun legal proceedings, but I knew we wouldn't get the venue back. The damage was done. That afternoon, my phone rang again. This time it was Antonio, the owner of the catering company I'd hired. "Miss Brooks, I'm calling about your request to change the menu to basic sandwich platters and chips." "I made no such request." He sighed. "I figured as much when I saw the email. Don't worry, we're keeping your original order, but you should know someone is trying to sabotage your event." "Can you forward me that email too?" The pattern was becoming clear. Someone was systematically contacting every vendor trying to cancel or downgrade services. By the end of the week, I'd heard from the photographer, the florist, the DJ, and the rental company. Each had received cancellation or change requests from email addresses mimicking mine. But the vendor sabotage was just the beginning. Thursday morning, my boss Richard called me into his office. His usually friendly face was stern. "Whoa, Cheyenne, we need to discuss some concerning complaints that have come to my attention." "But complaints." He pulled out a folder. "3 separate clients have called saying you've been pressuring them to invest in risky ventures. Mrs. Patterson claims you told her to liquidate her retirement funds for cryptocurrency investments." The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. "Richard, you know I would never—" "I know." He held up a hand. "That's why I'm talking to you instead of HR. But these are serious allegations. Mrs. Patterson even has emails to support her claim." "Well, fake emails like the ones sent to my reunion vendors. Richard, my family is trying to discredit me. It's related to an inheritance dispute." He leaned back, studying me. "I believe you, Cheyenne. You've been with us for 5 years without a single complaint. But I need you to handle this. Get to the bottom of it before it escalates." I spent the rest of the day contacting the clients who'd complained. Each had received emails from addresses similar to mine promoting investment schemes I'd never recommend. Mrs. Patterson was particularly shaken. "It seems so unlike you," she admitted, "but the email address looked right, and with all these internet scams, I panicked." By Friday, I'd hired Dana Castellanos, a private investigator recommended by Wallace. She specialized in cyber investigations and had a reputation for being thorough. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Denver. Dana was younger than I'd expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Show me everything," she said. I pulled out my laptop and walked her through the fake emails, the vendor contacts, the client complaints. She took notes, occasionally asking for clarification. "This is coordinated," she concluded. "Someone with decent technical skills, but not a professional. They're making mistakes, using similar IP addresses, same writing patterns. Give me a week, and I'll have answers." That weekend, Marcus and I tried to maintain some normalcy. We went hiking in the mountains, attempting to forget the chaos. But even there, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Jenny texted that my parents were telling everyone I'd lost my job. Another cousin asked if it was true I was being investigated for fraud. Let me throw the phone off the mountain. Marcus offered, only half joking. Can't. I need to document everything. Monday brought a new escalation. I was at home working remotely when someone knocked on my door. Through the peephole, I saw 2 police officers. My heart pounded as I opened the door. Can I help you? Cheyenne Brooks. We're here about a welfare check. Your family called saying they're concerned about your mental state. The audacity took my breath away. I'm fine. This is harassment. The older officer looked sympathetic. We can see that, ma'am, but we have to follow up on these calls. Have you been having any thoughts of self-harm? No. My family is trying to discredit me because of an inheritance dispute. They asked a few more questions, clearly recognizing the situation for what it was. After they left, I called Wallace immediately. This is escalating beyond vendor sabotage, I told him. They're trying to create a paper trail that I'm unstable. I was afraid of this. I could hear him shuffling papers. Your grandmother anticipated they might try to have you declared incompetent. She left very specific instructions for this scenario. 2 days later, Dana called with her findings. The fake emails are all coming from the same source. Someone's using basic VPN services, but they got sloppy. The digital trail leads back to Millbrook. Can you prove who specifically? Not definitively, but the timing of the emails correlates with login patterns from a computer registered to Frank Brooks. My father, of course. There's more, Donna continued. I did some digging into your parents' finances. They're in serious debt. 3 mortgages on their house, maxed credit cards, and several personal loans. Whatever they were doing with your grandmother's money, it wasn't enough. The picture was becoming clearer. My parents were desperate, likely counting on inheriting from Grandmother Rose to solve their problems. My inheritance was salt in a very fresh wound. That evening, I sat down with Marcus and laid out everything Dana had discovered. So what's the plan? He asked. We document everything and wait. The reunion is in 10 weeks. They think they're wearing me down, but really they're building my case. What about Grandview Manor? I smiled. I have a backup plan. Remember the Riverside Pavilion, where the hospital holds their charity gala. The place with the glass walls overlooking the river. That's even nicer than Grandview. Exactly. And they had a last-minute cancellation. Janet secured it this morning. Same date, same time, arguably better venue. Marcus laughed. Your family is going to lose their minds. That's the point. Every move they make reveals more about who they really are. Grandmother knew this would happen. She counted on it. The next morning brought another surprise. Wallace called early, his voice urgent. Cheyenne, I need you to come to my office immediately. Bring any documentation you have about your mental health work performance. Anything that shows stability. What's happening? Your father filed a petition with the court. He's trying to have you declared mentally incompetent to nullify your grandmother's will. The hearing is tomorrow. I felt the world tilt, then steady. This was it. The nuclear option. Frank had shown his hand. I'll be there in 3 hours, I said calmly. And Wallace, tell them to prepare for war. They want to question my mental competence. Let's show them exactly how clear my thinking is. As I packed my documents, my phone rang. It was Madison. Cheyenne, she said, fake concern dripping from every word. I just heard what Dad's doing. I want you to know I tried to talk him out of it. This isn't what any of us wanted. Isn't it? I asked. Isn't this exactly what you all wanted to break me, discredit me, steal what grandmother left me? We just want what's fair. No, I cut her off. You want what's mine. But here's something none of you counted on. I'm not the scared girl who ran to Denver 5 years ago. I've built a life, a career, a reputation, and I've documented every single thing you've done these past 18 months. Every lie, every scheme, every pathetic attempt to tear me down. See you in court, Madison. I hung up and finished packing. The sabotage campaign had failed to break me. Now it was time to show them why Grandmother Rose had chosen me to carry out her final wishes. The real game was just beginning. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, all worn wood and flickering fluorescent lights. I sat beside Wallace, my hands steady despite the storm in my chest. Across the aisle, my parents flanked by their lawyer, a sweating man named Hutchins who kept shuffling papers nervously. Judge Catherine Reeves, a woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, reviewed the documents before her. This is a petition for mental incompetence regarding Miss Cheyenne Brooks filed by her father, Frank Brooks. Mr. Hutchins, present your case. Hutchins stood clearing his throat. Your Honor, we believe Miss Brooks is suffering from delusions regarding her grandmother's estate. She's spent excessive amounts on an unnecessary family reunion, exhibited paranoid behavior, claiming persecution, and has been emotionally unstable. Do you have evidence of this instability? Judge Reeves asked. Her own family will testify to her erratic behavior. She's cut them off, refused reasonable communication, and made wild accusations about theft and sabotage. The judge turned to Wallace. Your response? Wallace stood smoothly. Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that this petition is not only baseless, but part of a coordinated campaign to steal Miss Brooks's rightful inheritance. He began with my employment records, 5 years of stellar performance reviews, client testimonials, and a recent promotion. Then came the documentation of the sabotage, fake emails, vendor confirmations, the police reports from the welfare check. This is a pattern of harassment, Wallace stated, not the behavior of concerned family members, but of desperate individuals trying to discredit my client. Frank shifted in his seat as Wallace presented Dinah's findings about the fake emails tracing back to Millbrook. Barbara's face went pale when bank records showing my parents' massive debts appeared on the screen. Then Wallace played his trump card. Your Honor, I'd like to submit video evidence recorded by Mrs. Rose Brooks before her passing. The courtroom fell silent as Grandmother Rose appeared on the monitor. This wasn't the gentle message she'd left me. This was different, harder, angrier. If you're watching this, her recorded voice said, then my son Frank has done exactly what I expected. He's trying to have Cheyenne declared incompetent. Let me be clear, I was of sound mind when I made my will. I chose Cheyenne because she's the only honest one in this family. Frank and Barbara have been stealing from me for years, thinking I was too old to notice. Every visit, money disappeared. They claimed it was for my care, but I kept records. She held up a notebook. $43,000 over 3 years, withdrawn from accounts they thought I'd forgotten about. I have bank statements, withdrawal slips with their signatures. I gave them chance after chance to come clean. They never did. The video continued for 10 minutes, Grandmother Rose methodically presenting evidence of my parents' theft. By the end, Barbara was crying. Not from shame, but from rage at being exposed. Judge Reeves looked disgusted. Mr. Hutchins, do you have any response to this? Hutchins stammered. The video could be manipulated. Are you suggesting this elderly woman fabricated bank records and signatures? The judge's voice was ice. I've seen enough. This petition is not only denied, but appears to be filed in bad faith. Miss Brooks is clearly competent. Moreover, I'm forwarding this evidence to the district attorney for potential elder abuse charges. Court dismissed. Outside the courthouse, my parents tried to approach me. Wallace stepped between us. My client has nothing to say to you, he stated firmly. Frank's face was purple with rage. You think you've won, this isn't over. Actually, it is, Wallace replied calmly. Any further harassment will result in restraining orders. I suggest you prepare for your reunion appearance in 10 weeks. That is if you're not in jail by then. As we walked to our cars, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but I recognized the voice immediately. Aunt Patricia, my father's older sister. We hadn't spoken in years. Cheyenne, I just heard what happened in court. Can we meet? There's something you need to know. I met Patricia at a quiet restaurant halfway between Denver and Millbrook. She looked older than I remembered, stress etched in lines around her eyes. We ordered coffee and sat in awkward silence before she spoke. "I owe you an apology," she began. "I've known what Frank and Barbara were doing for years. I should have spoken up." "Why didn't you?" She sighed. "Fear, mostly. You don't know what Frank's capable of when crossed. But watching him try to destroy you, I can't stay silent anymore." Patricia pulled out a thick folder. "I've been documenting everything. Not just the money they stole from Mother, but other things. Fake charity fundraisers, insurance fraud, even identity theft using Madison's social security number when she was a minor." I stared at the paper's evidence of crimes spanning decades. "Why are you giving this to me now?" "Because they've gone too far, and because Mother asked me to." She smiled sadly. "She came to me 6 months before she died, said she was leaving you everything, and that Frank would try to destroy you for it. She asked me to watch, document, and step in if needed. Grandmother planned all of this. She was playing chess while everyone else played checkers. Your reunion. It's not about bringing family together. It's about exposing them for who they really are, and she needed someone she could trust to carry it out." Patricia leaned forward. "There's something else. The family reunion website you created, I've been monitoring the comments, the RSVPs. You have more support than you know. Cousins, aunts, uncles who've been bullied by Frank and Barbara for years. They're all planning to attend." "How many?" "At least 30, not counting Frank's side. People are tired of the lies, the manipulation. Your cousin David called me last week. He's been building a legal case for years, waiting for the right moment. This reunion might be it." Over the next 2 hours, Patricia laid out years of family secrets. How Frank had bullied inheritance from elderly relatives. How Barbara had turned family members against each other for sport. How Madison and Tyler had learned from the best, becoming miniature versions of their parents. "But there's hope for Tyler," Patricia added. "He's young, confused. Madison might be too far gone, but Tyler could still choose differently." "He broke into my apartment," I reminded her. "On Frank's orders. The boy's terrified of his father. Always has been." She paused. "Did you know Frank hits him?" The revelation stunned me. I'd seen Frank's temper, but never physical violence. No. Barbara covers the bruises, makes excuses. Tyler's been trying to earn Frank's approval his whole life. The break-in, just another desperate attempt to please his father. My anger toward my little brother shifted to pity. He was 24, old enough to make better choices, but still trapped in our parents' web. "What do you want me to do with all this?" I asked, gesturing to the folder. "Use it. Protect yourself. And maybe save Tyler if you can." Patricia stood to leave, then turned back. "Your grandmother loved you more than you know. She saw herself in you, the one who got away. Don't let them pull you back." That night, I spread Patricia's documents across my dining room table. Marcus helped me organize them, whistling low at some of the evidence. "Your family makes crime syndicates look amateur," he said. "They've had years of practice." I picked up a photo of a young Frank and Patricia with their mother. Look how normal they seemed. "What's the plan now?" I thought about Grandmother Rose playing chess beyond the grave. About Patricia finally choosing a side. About Tyler trapped between fear and loyalty. We stick to the plan. The reunion happens in 10 weeks, but now we're not just exposing lies. We're offering redemption to those who want it. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Even after everything—" Grandmother didn't just want revenge. She wanted truth. Some people deserve consequences, yes, but others might just need a chance to choose differently. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Tyler. Can we talk without Mom and Dad knowing?" I showed Marcus the message. He frowned. Could be a trap. Maybe, or maybe it's a crack in their united front. I thought about what Patricia had said. Tyler young and scared, trying to earn love through crime. I texted back, "Denver Public Library, tomorrow. 2 p.m. Come alone. You sure about this? Marcus asked. No, but grandmother took calculated risks. Time I learned to do the same. The next morning brought another surprise. Wallace called with news that made me sink into my office chair. The district attorney is moving forward with charges against your parents, he said. The evidence from court yesterday, combined with what they're finding in their investigation, is substantial. They'll likely be arrested within the week. Before the reunion, possibly, this might change everything, Cheyenne. Your parents facing jail time adds a new dimension to the situation. I thought about the reunion now, just 10 weeks away. About family members gathering secrets, being exposed, truths finally spoken. Would my parents even be free to attend? The reunion goes forward regardless, I decided, with or without them. After hanging up, I sat in my office staring at the family photo on my desk. Not my current family, my parents and siblings, but an older one. Grandmother Rose with her children when they were young before greed poisoned their hearts. Patricia had given me more than evidence. She'd given me perspective. This wasn't just about money or revenge. It was about breaking cycles, exposing truth, and maybe, just maybe, redemption for those willing to grasp it. 10 weeks until the reunion. The board was set the pieces in motion. Some would fall, others might rise. And at the center of it all, Grandmother Rose's final gambit played out through the granddaughter she'd chosen to execute it. I picked up my phone and dialed Janet. How quickly can you add security to our event? Professional, discreet, but comprehensive. Well, I'm planning for trouble. Planning for truth, I corrected, and truth can be a dangerous thing in my family. The Denver Public Library's reading room was nearly empty when Tyler walked in. He looked terrible. Hollow eyes, nervous movements, constantly checking over his shoulder. At 24, my little brother seemed to have aged a decade in the past year. He spotted me at a corner table and approached cautiously like a beaten dog expecting another blow. When he sat down, I noticed his hands shaking. Thanks for meeting me, he said quietly. You said you wanted to talk without Mom and Dad knowing. I'm listening. Tyler glanced around again before speaking. They're losing it, Cheyenne. Ever since the court thing, Dad's been drinking nonstop. Mom's popping pills like candy, and they're planning something for the reunion. Something bad. What kind of something? I don't know exactly. They keep having these hushed conversations that stop when I enter the room, but I heard Dad on the phone with someone talking about making sure she doesn't leave the reunion with anything. The threat was vague but chilling. I studied Tyler's face, looking for deception but finding only fear. Why are you telling me this? His voice cracked. Because I can't do this anymore. The lying, the stealing, the constant anger. Did you know Dad's been hitting me since I was 12? Aunt Patricia told me recently. I'm sorry, Tyler. I didn't know. You left. The accusation held no heat, just resignation. You got out. I never could. You can now. He shook his head. With what I have, nothing. No job, no money, no skills. Everything I have comes from them. They made sure of that. I made a decision that would have shocked me months ago. What if I helped you? Tyler's eyes widened. Why would you do that? After everything? Because you're 24, not 14. Because you came here warning me. Because Grandmother Rose believed in second chances for people who earned them. I broke into your apartment. On Dad's orders. I know. I leaned forward. Here's the deal. You want out, really out. Then help me. Tell me everything about their plans. Testify if needed. In exchange, I'll help you relocate, find a job, start fresh. Hope flickered in his eyes before dimming. They'll destroy me. They're already destroying you, Tyler. The question is whether you want to save yourself. He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. There's a safe in Dad's office. Combination is Mom's birthday backwards. Inside are documents, plans, contact information for some pretty sketchy people, and, he hesitated, what? Recordings. Dad records everything thinking he's building insurance against people, but he's implicated himself 100 times over. My pulse quickened. This was exactly what we needed. Can you get them? Maybe. They're going to a casino this weekend. Some comp trip they scammed. I could. He trailed off, fear returning. Tyler, I need you to understand something. If you do this, there's no going back. You'll have to testify possibly against them in criminal proceedings. Are you prepared for that? He met my eyes, and for the first time I saw steel there. They killed who I could have been. Cheyenne, every dream, every aspiration crushed under Dad's fist and Mom's manipulation. So yeah, I'm prepared. I want to be someone else, someone better. We spent another hour planning. Tyler would retrieve the documents while our parents were gone. He'd make copies of everything, return the originals, and meet Dinah at a secure location. It was risky, but the potential payoff was huge. As we prepared to leave, Tyler grabbed my hand. I'm sorry for everything. The break-in, the lies, not standing up for you years ago. I was a coward. You were a kid in an impossible situation. What matters is what you do now. That weekend, while Frank and Barbara gambled away money they didn't have, Tyler executed our plan perfectly. Dinah met him at a truck stop outside Millbrook, where he handed over a USB drive and a box of documents. The contents were explosive. Frank had been recording conversations for years, with business partners, family members, even his own lawyer. The recordings revealed not just the elder abuse and theft, but a complex web of fraud, blackmail, and intimidation spanning decades. One recording stood out. Frank talking to someone named Vincent about handling me at the reunion. The plans were vague but sinister. Something about public humiliation, planted evidence, and ensuring I left broken and penniless. Donna immediately turned copies over to law enforcement while Wallace began building additional legal protections. The reunion was now 8 weeks away, and the stakes had escalated beyond family drama to potential physical danger. I hired professional security through a firm Wallace recommended. Not obvious muscle, but trained professionals who could blend into an event while maintaining vigilance. The Riverside Pavilion's natural layout with its glass walls and limited access points would work in our favor. Tyler moved into a furnished apartment in Fort Collins, an hour from Denver, but worlds away from Millbrook. I helped him enroll in community college and connected him with a therapist who specialized in abuse survivors. The transformation was remarkable. Within weeks, he stood taller, smiled more, and began discovering who he might have been without our parents' toxic influence. Madison predictably tried to manipulate him back. She showed up at his apartment unannounced, alternating between tears and threats. They're our parents," she pleaded. "You can't just abandon them. And for her, the sister who abandoned all of us?" Tyler's response, which he recorded at my suggestion, was perfect. Cheyenne didn't abandon us. She escaped. There's a difference. And now I'm escaping too. She's brainwashed you. No, Madison, I'm finally thinking clearly. Do you know what it's like to walk on eggshells every day? To never know if you'll get hit for speaking wrong? To watch Mom and Dad steal from a dying woman and be told it's justified? Madison's mask slipped. That money should have been ours. We took care of Grandma. We neglected Grandma while robbing her blind, and you know it. Their confrontation ended with Madison storming out, but not before revealing something crucial. Fine, but don't come crying to me when Vincent does what Dad paid him to do. Cheyenne won't make it through the reunion, and neither will you if you stand with her. Tyler immediately called me with this information. Vincent Morelli, I knew the name, a local thug who did dirty work for those willing to pay. The threat was now concrete and imminent. Wallace and I met with Detective Sarah Chen, who was handling the elder abuse case. She listened to the recordings with growing concern. "This goes beyond financial crimes," she said. "We're looking at conspiracy to commit assault, possibly worse. We'll have undercover officers at your reunion." "Will my parents be arrested before then?" "That's the plan. But these recordings about Vincent Morelli suggest they're working with others. We need to cast a wider net." The final weeks of preparation became a delicate balance. Publicly, I continued posting cheerful updates on the reunion website, photos of the beautiful riverside pavilion, the gourmet menu selections, the planned activities. The comment section revealed the growing divide in the family, supportive messages from cousins and distant relatives mixed with increasingly desperate attacks from my parents' camp. Patricia proved invaluable quietly, reaching out to family members, sharing select pieces of evidence, building a coalition of truth. By 2 weeks before the reunion, we had confirmations from 38 family members, not counting my parents and Madison. Then came the news that changed everything. Detective Chen called on a Thursday morning, her voice tense with excitement. "We arrested your parents this morning, Frank Barbara and 2 associates including Vincent Morelli. The charges include elder abuse fraud, conspiracy to commit assault, and racketeering." I sat down heavily. Racketeering. Your father's recordings revealed a larger operation. He's been running scams for years, using family reunions and charity events as covers. Your grandmother's money was just the latest score. What about Madison? No direct evidence linking her to criminal activity yet. She's person of interest, but not under arrest. The news spread through the family like wildfire. My phone exploded with calls and texts. Some expressed shock, others claimed they'd always known something was wrong. Madison predictably portrayed herself as a victim on social media, claiming her parents had been framed by their vindictive daughter. With my parents in custody and their hired thug arrested, the physical threat diminished but didn't disappear. Madison was still free, still angry, and still dangerous in her own way. And there were relatives who'd benefited from Frank's schemes over the years, people with their own reasons to fear exposure. 1 week before the reunion, I stood in the Riverside Pavilion with Janet doing a final walkthrough. The space was magnificent. Soaring glass walls overlooking the river, elegant table settings a stage for presentations. Everything Grandmother Rose had envisioned. "You've done something remarkable here," Janet said. "Most family reunions are about preserving illusions. This one seems designed to shatter them." "My grandmother believed in truth," I replied, "even when it hurts." And the security arrangements: 3 plainclothes officers, 4 private security metal detectors disguised as decorative arches. Plus, Tyler will be there, and he's been learning to spot trouble. Janet nodded approvingly. "You're ready for anything." But as I looked out at the peaceful river, I wondered if anyone could truly be ready for what was coming. 42 family members converging in one space, secrets ready to explode, truth and lies set to collide. 1 week until Grandmother Rose's final gambit played out. 1 week until everything changed forever. Monday morning arrived with an email that made my blood freeze. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear: "Check your reunion planning folder. You're welcome." A friend. I logged into the shared drive where Janet and I kept all the reunion documents. Everything looked normal until I noticed the access logs. Multiple logins over the past week, all from IP addresses I didn't recognize. Someone had been in our system. My hands trembled as I opened the email folder. There, in a hidden subfolder, was an entire conversation thread between family members. Madison had created a secret group email, and someone had forwarded everything to our planning folder. The emails revealed their plan in meticulous detail. Since Frank and Barbara's arrest, Madison had taken charge. The official reunion would happen on Sunday as scheduled, but on Saturday, they planned to hold their own gathering at Grandview Manor, the venue they'd stolen from me months ago. "We'll show everyone who really honors Grandma's memory," Madison had written. "Cheyenne thinks she's so smart with her fancy venue and security, but when the family sees our beautiful event on Saturday, they'll understand who truly cares about family unity." The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. They'd sent secret invitations to specific family members claiming I'd changed the date. They'd take photos, post them online, and create a narrative that I'd tried to exclude the real family. When people showed up to my event on Sunday, it would look like a desperate attempt to compete with their authentic gathering. But there was more. Madison had hired a photographer. Not just any photographer, but someone who specialized in creative editing. The plan was to doctor photos, making it appear I'd been at their Saturday event, looking drunk and belligerent. They'd release these right before the Sunday reunion, destroying my credibility. Tyler called as I was processing this information. "Did you see what someone sent?" "Reading it now. Any idea who our friend might be?" "I have a theory. Madison's been dating this guy Connor. He helped her set up the tech stuff for the secret emails, but they had a massive fight last week when she refused to bail him out of jail. Again." "Hell hath no fury," I murmured. "Exactly. What's the plan?" I thought quickly. "We don't confront them. We let Saturday happen exactly as they planned." "Are you insane?" "Trust me, but I need you to do something. Can you get invited to their Saturday event? Play the remorseful brother, say you realize you made a mistake." Tyler was quiet then. "I can try. Madison's been bombarding me with messages. If I respond correctly..." "Do it. We need eyes inside their event." By Wednesday, Tyler had successfully convinced Madison he was reconsidering his allegiance. She'd eagerly added him to the Saturday guest list, viewing his return as a victory against me. He forwarded me the invitation. They'd even copied my original design, just changing the date and venue. Meanwhile, Janet and I accelerated our Sunday preparations. I contacted every confirmed guest, personally warning them about the Saturday deception without revealing how I knew. Most were appalled at the manipulation. "Some people never change," Cousin David said. "Don't worry, Cheyenne. The family members who matter know the truth." Patricia was particularly helpful, creating a phone tree to ensure everyone knew the correct date. By Thursday evening, we'd confirmed that only 12 people planned to attend Madison's Saturday event. Mostly Frank's business associates and a few relatives who'd benefited from his schemes over the years. Friday brought an unexpected visitor. Madison appeared at my office dressed impeccably, her smile sharp as glass. "Security let me up," she said, settling into a chair without invitation. "Professional courtesy, I suppose." "What do you want, Madison?" "To offer you a way out." She crossed her legs, playing the role of magnanimous victor. "This reunion thing has gotten out of hand. Our parents are in jail, Tyler's lost his mind, and we're about to embarrass ourselves in front of the entire family. Again." "Your point?" "Call off Sunday's event. Let tomorrow's gathering be the official reunion. I'll make sure you're credited as co-organizer. We'll tell everyone we planned it together. Win-win." The audacity was breathtaking. "You're holding a secret event behind my back and want me to pretend we're partners?" "I'm trying to save you from humiliation. When people see the beautiful event we've created versus your..." She waved dismissively. "Whatever you're planning, the comparisons won't be kind." "Thank you for the offer," I said calmly, "but I'll take my chances." Her mask slipped slightly. "You always were too stubborn for your own good. When tomorrow's event goes viral and yours flops, remember I tried to help." After she left, I called Detective Chen. "Madison just threatened me. Subtly, but it was there." "We're monitoring the situation. We'll have eyes on both venues this weekend. If she crosses any legal lines, we'll act." That evening, Marcus and I met Tyler for dinner at a quiet restaurant. He looked nervous, but determined. "Madison's been texting all day," he reported. "She wants me there early tomorrow to help set up. She's convinced they're about to expose you as a fraud." "What's the mood like with that group?" "Desperate. They know the arrests look bad, so they're doubling down on the narrative that you framed Mom and Dad. Madison's created this whole mythology where you're the villain who destroyed the family out of greed." "Do they actually believe that..." Tyler shrugged. "Some do. Others are just protecting their own interests. Uncle Robert's terrified his own fraud will be exposed. Cousin Mark knows Dad helped him with some shady business deals. They need you to be the bad guy or they might be next." We reviewed the plan one final time. Tyler would attend Saturday's event, documenting everything while playing the supportive brother. Security would monitor from a distance. We'd let them have their moment, create their false narrative. Because Sunday would reveal the truth in a way none of them expected. Saturday morning dawned gray and drizzly. Pathetic fallacy, I thought, watching rain streak my apartment windows. Somewhere across town, Madison was preparing for her triumph. Let her have it. Tomorrow would be different. My phone buzzed with updates from Tyler throughout the day. 12 people here. Madison acting like it's 100? They hired actors, literally hired people to fill seats for photos. Photographer just asked me to pose looking disapproving for some shots. Pretty sure they're planning to Photoshop you in. The last text came around 4 p.m. Something's wrong. Madison's on the phone panicking. Overheard something about the reporter found out. I smiled. Right on schedule. Because what Madison didn't know was that I'd invited Stephanie Martinez, the local reporter who'd covered my parents' arrest, to both events. She'd received Madison's secret invitation through a source and mine officially. The comparison story would write itself. That evening, as Madison's event wound down, my phone rang. It was Patricia. "Oh, just saw the news footage," she said, barely containing laughter. Madison trying to explain why half her family reunion was paid actors. The reporter asked her point blank about the deception. It's already trending locally. Any word from Madison? Oh, yes. She's in full damage control mode, claiming the actors were just event staff and the Saturday gathering was a rehearsal for tomorrow. No one's buying it. I felt a twinge of pity for my sister. She'd learned from our parents that image mattered more than truth, that manipulation was a survival skill. Tomorrow's reunion would shatter those illusions, possibly beyond repair. Marcus found me on the balcony staring at the city lights. "You okay?" Just thinking about Grandmother Rose. She orchestrated all of this knowing how it would play out. The reunion, the arrests, Madison's self-destruction. Was she a genius or just vindictive? "Maybe both," Marcus said gently. "Maybe she knew the only way to save some of you was to expose all of you. Tomorrow isn't just about revealing truth. It's about choosing what comes next." He was right. In less than 12 hours, the Brooks family would gather for what might be the last time. Some would face consequences, others redemption. And at the center of it all, Grandmother Rose's legacy would finally be fulfilled. The week of preparation was over. Tomorrow, everything would change. I thought about Tyler, brave enough to switch sides, Patricia finally speaking truth, the cousins and aunts and uncles who'd confirmed their attendance, ready to reclaim a family free from Frank's corruption, even Madison, whose desperate schemes had only hastened her own downfall. "Ready for tomorrow?" Marcus asked. As ready as anyone can be for their family's reckoning. The stage was set, the players in position. In 12 hours at the Riverside Pavilion, 3 generations of secrets would finally see daylight. The week before was ending. The day of truth was about to begin. Saturday's gray skies had given way to brilliant Sunday sunshine, as if nature itself had decided to illuminate what was about to unfold. I stood in the Riverside Pavilion at 6 a.m., watching the catering staff arrange tables and the security team do their final sweeps. My phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. Madison's event was a disaster. Only 12 real people showed up. The actors left early when she couldn't pay them extra for photos. Reporter got everything. The vindication felt hollow. This wasn't about winning against Madison. It was about something much larger. Janet arrived with her clipboard running through last-minute details. "The news van just pulled up," she informed me. "Stephanie Martinez wants to interview you before guests arrive. Tell her I'll speak with her at 9 once everything's set up." Detective Chen had called earlier, confirming undercover officers were in place. The security team leader, a former military officer named James, walked me through their positions. "We've got every entrance covered," he assured me. "Metal detectors are discreet but functional. If anyone tries anything, we'll know." By 8:30, the venue looked spectacular. Round tables with white linens faced the stage where a large portrait of Grandmother Rose stood surrounded by flowers. The river sparkled through the glass walls, creating dancing light patterns on the ceiling. Patricia arrived early carrying a box of old photo albums. Thought people might enjoy seeing family history, the good times before. Before Frank poisoned everything, I finished. She nodded. I've been getting calls all morning. People are nervous, but excited. This feels like a new beginning. Tyler showed up at 9 looking exhausted but determined. Madison knows about the reporter from yesterday. She's in full meltdown mode, spent all night calling family members trying to convince them not to come today. How many did she reach? Maybe 5 or 6, but David shut her down hard, told her the games were over. Stephanie Martinez approached with her camera operator professional but clearly excited about the story developing. Cheyenne, can we talk about yesterday's event and what you're expecting today? I chose my words carefully. My goal has always been simple: bring the Brooks family together to honor my grandmother's memory. What others chose to do with that opportunity reflects on them, not on the reunion's purpose. Are you concerned about potential disruptions, given your parents' recent arrest? I'm hopeful that today will be about healing and truth. My grandmother believed in redemption. So do I. The interview was brief, but set the right tone. By 10 a.m., family members began arriving. Each face told a story: curiosity, apprehension, hope, or suspicion. The security team checked names against the guest list, while the metal detectors did their silent work. Cousin Jenny arrived with her family, giving me a warm hug. "Proud of you," she whispered. "This took courage." David came next, his judge's bearing intact even in casual clothes. "If you need anything today, legally speaking, I'm here." The extended family filled in gradually: great-aunts who'd been estranged from Frank for decades, cousins who'd moved away to escape the drama. Each arrival felt like a small victory against the toxic dynamics that had fractured us. By 10:45, 38 family members had checked in. Madison hadn't appeared, but I recognized several of her allies scattered through the crowd, whispering among themselves. Then, at exactly 11 a.m., Madison walked in. She dressed for war, a black designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, jewelry that screamed wealth she didn't have, and an expression of wounded dignity that would have been convincing if I hadn't known better. The room's energy shifted. Conversations stuttered to a stop as she made her entrance, pausing dramatically in the doorway. Behind her stood 3 of Frank's business associates, men who'd profited from his schemes and had every reason to fear exposure. "Well," Madison announced to the room, "I see the pretender has gathered her court." Before I could respond, Patricia stepped forward. "Madison, you're welcome here if you've come in good faith, but if you're here to cause trouble..." Trouble. Madison laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "I'm here to honor my grandmother, unlike some people who only showed up for the money." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I felt the room dividing, old alliances and grievances surfacing. This was the moment Grandmother Rose had anticipated, the catalyst that would force hidden truths into the light. "Actually," a new voice said from the entrance, "I think we should talk about who really honored Rose." Everyone turned to see Wallace, my grandmother's attorney, entering with a briefcase. Behind him walked someone I didn't expect: Connor, Madison's ex-boyfriend, looking uncomfortable but resolute. Madison's face went white. "Connor, what are you doing here?" "Something I should have done weeks ago," he replied. "Mr. Wallace, I believe you have some things to share." Wallace moved to the small stage, his presence commanding attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but recent events have necessitated transparency. Mrs. Rose Brooks left more than just money and conditions in her estate. She left evidence." He pulled out a tablet, connecting it to the venue's AV system. "Before we proceed with the reunion's planned activities, there's something everyone needs to see." Madison started toward the exit, but James, the security leader, subtly blocked her path. Please stay, Ms. Brooks. This concerns you directly. On the screen, Grandmother Rose appeared once again, but this wasn't the gentle message I'd first seen or even the accusatory video from court. This was dated just 1 week before her death. My dear family, she began, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in years. If you're watching this, then Cheyenne has succeeded in bringing you together, and it's time for complete honesty. She adjusted her glasses, looking directly at the camera. For the past 5 years, I've documented everything. Every theft, every lie, every scheme. Not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. You need to understand the full scope of what Frank and Barbara have done, not just to me, but to all of you. What followed was 20 minutes of methodical devastation. Grandmother Rose presented bank records showing Frank stealing not just from her but from his siblings' inheritance from their father. Emails between Barbara and Madison planning to have Grandmother Rose declared incompetent. Security footage of Tyler being coerced into forging documents. Phone recordings of Frank arranging accidents for family members who questioned him. The room sat in stunned silence. Some family members cried, others looked angry. Madison had sunk into a chair, her grand entrance forgotten. But Grandmother Rose wasn't finished. I want to address specific people now. Robert, your brother, has been blackmailing you about your tax evasion for 10 years. The evidence is with the IRS now. Better to come clean than wait for them to find you. Uncle Robert's face went gray. Patricia, thank you for documenting what you could. Your courage in speaking truth will help heal this family. Patricia wiped tears from her eyes. Tyler, you were just a child trying to survive. The abuse you suffered wasn't your fault. Choose better now. Tyler stood straighter, finding strength in her words. Madison. Grandmother Rose paused, her expression sad. You have your mother's intelligence and your father's ambition. But you also have a choice. You can continue their legacy of manipulation, or you can choose truth. The evidence of your involvement in the elder abuse is documented, but not yet submitted. Your future depends on what you do next. The video had one final revelation. I've established a foundation with the remainder of my estate after Cheyenne's inheritance. It will help elderly people protect themselves from financial abuse by family members. It will be run by those family members who choose honesty today. The screen went dark. The silence was deafening. Then Connor spoke up. Madison, tell them about Vincent Morelli. Tell them what you were planning for today. Madison's carefully constructed composure finally cracked. Shut up, Connor. No, they deserve to know. He turned to the room. She hired Morelli's cousin to disrupt this event. He's supposed to show up claiming Cheyenne assaulted him, file false charges, make a scene. The guy's waiting in the parking lot for her signal. Detective Chen, who'd been posing as catering staff, spoke into her radio. Within moments, we heard commotion outside. Through the glass walls, we could see uniformed officers arresting a man in the parking lot. Thank you for that information, Mr. Connor, Chen said, revealing her badge. Ms. Madison Brooks, you're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted fraud, and witness intimidation. As officers led Madison away, she turned to look at me one last time. The hatred in her eyes had dimmed to something else. Defeat, maybe even regret. Our sister relationship, poisoned from the start by our parents' toxicity, ended with her in handcuffs. The room erupted in voices. Shock, anger, confusion, and surprisingly relief. Secrets that had festered for decades were finally in the open. The Brooks family dysfunction was laid bare, but so was the possibility of healing. I stood, moving to the microphone. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I know this isn't the reunion any of us expected, but maybe it's the one we needed. Grandmother Rose believed in truth and redemption. The question now is, what do we do with both? Uncle Robert stood slowly. I need to speak with Detective Chen about the tax situation and other things. One by one, family members began talking. Really talking. Not the surface pleasantries of typical reunions, but honest conversations about pain abuse and survival. The reporters captured it, all this messy, painful, necessary unraveling of decades of lies. Tyler joined me on the stage. Should we continue with lunch? The caterers are ready. I looked out at our fractured family, some in tears, others in heated discussion, a few comforting each other. It wasn't pretty, but it was real. Yes, I decided. Let's eat together. We have a lot to process, and we shouldn't do it on empty stomachs. As people moved toward the beautifully set tables, Patricia approached. Rose would be proud. This is exactly what she wanted. Not revenge, but revelation. Not punishment, but the chance for redemption. Through the glass walls, I could see Madison in the back of a police car, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. Our parents were in jail, about to face serious time. The family empire built on lies and theft had crumbled in a single morning. But around me, something new was beginning. Cousins who hadn't spoken in years were sharing stories. Aunts were comparing notes on Frank's manipulation. Tyler was surrounded by family members offering support and job opportunities. The betrayal grandmother Rose had orchestrated, betraying the family secrets to save the family itself, was complete. Now came the harder part, deciding what kind of family we wanted to be moving forward. As I watched the river flow beyond the windows, I thought I felt grandmother Rose's presence. Her final gambit had worked. The Brooks family would never be the same. And that was exactly the point. The lunch that followed the morning's revelations felt surreal. Family members sat at tables trying to process what they'd witnessed, while making small talk over gourmet salads. Some couldn't eat, pushing food around their plates. Others seemed liberated, talking animatedly for the first time in years. I moved between tables, checking on relatives when Stephanie Martinez approached with her cameraman. Cheyenne, this is unprecedented. A family reunion that's become a criminal investigation. How are you feeling? Overwhelmed but hopeful, I answered honestly. My grandmother knew our family needed radical honesty to heal. It's painful but necessary. Can you comment on your sister's arrest? I hope Madison gets the help she needs. Our parents raised us in a toxic environment. Some of us escaped, others internalized it. There's still time for her to choose differently. As we talked, I noticed commotion near the entrance. Detective Chen was speaking urgently into her radio while uniformed officers moved with purpose. Wallace approached me quickly. We have a situation, he said quietly. Your parents made bail yesterday. No one informed us. Security footage shows them in the parking lot 20 minutes ago. My blood chilled. Frank and Barbara out of jail and presumably desperate somewhere nearby. The security team immediately shifted into high alert, but the damage was already beginning. Uncle Robert's phone rang. His face paled as he listened. The office. Someone broke in. All the computers are gone. More phones began ringing. Cousin Mark's storage unit had been emptied. Patricia's car windows were smashed. It was a coordinated attack on family members who'd been cooperating with authorities. Then Frank's voice boomed over the venue's speaker system. He'd somehow accessed the AV controls. Well, my loving family gathered to celebrate my mother's memory by destroying her son. His words slurred slightly, drunk or medicated. You think you've won, Cheyenne. You think your grandmother's little show changes anything. Security scrambled to locate him while his disembodied voice continued. I built this family's wealth. Every one of you benefited from my work, and this is how you repay me, with betrayal. Cut the audio, I shouted to the AV technician. I can't. He's overridden the system. Barbara's voice joined Frank's. Madison called us from jail, our own daughter arrested because of lies and manipulation. Cheyenne, you've destroyed this family. No, I said firmly, finding a microphone that still worked. You destroyed this family with greed and abuse. I just exposed it. Exposed it, Frank laughed bitterly. You have no idea what you've exposed. The connections I have, the people who owe me favors. You think a few arrests matter? I've been playing this game longer than you've been alive." Through the glass walls, we could see police cars converging on the parking lot. Whatever Frank and Barbara had planned, law enforcement was closing in. But Frank wasn't finished. "Before they drag me away again, let me share some truths your precious grandmother didn't mention. Patricia, remember when your husband died? Such a tragedy, that car accident. Except we both know it wasn't an accident, don't we?" Patricia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "David, your appointment to the bench. You think that was merit? I have the photos from that hotel room. The senator's wife was very accommodating." "Enough," I shouted, but Frank continued his scorched earth revelations. "Tyler, my worthless son, you think you're free? I own you. Every mistake, every failure, every—" The audio cut abruptly. The AV technician held up severed cables. Sometimes the analog solution works best. But the damage was done. Frank had weaponized family secrets, trying to burn everything down rather than face justice. The room buzzed with shock and whispered conversations. Detective Chen's voice crackled over her radio. "We have them! Parking structure level 2, no resistance." Through the windows, we watched Frank and Barbara being arrested again, this time with no possibility of bail. They'd violated their release conditions spectacularly. As officers led them past the windows, Frank looked directly at me, his face twisted with rage. Barbara appeared sedated, stumbling between the officers. The room remained frozen in uncomfortable silence. Frank's revelations, whether true or fabricated, had shattered the fragile peace we'd been building. Then Patricia stood, her voice shaking but determined. "Since we're being honest, I'll address Frank's accusation. My husband did die in a car accident. Frank tried to make it look suspicious to blackmail me. The police investigated thoroughly and found nothing because there was nothing to find. Frank's evidence was fabricated photos and planted documents." David stood next. "The hotel room photos Frank mentioned, they exist. They show me meeting with a constituent about her daughter's custody case. Her husband was the senator trying to use his influence to take her children. I helped her pro bono. Frank tried to make it look illicit, but I have all the case files to prove otherwise." One by one, family members began standing, addressing Frank's poison. "He threatened to ruin my business if I didn't invest in his schemes. She convinced me my mother didn't love me, turned me against my own siblings. They stole my inheritance and made me think I'd spent it during a mental breakdown that never happened." The testimonies continued for an hour. Every person Frank had tried to destroy with his final words instead found courage to speak their truth. The weapon he'd intended to fracture us further became the catalyst for deeper honesty. Wallace returned to the microphone. "I've just received word from the prosecutor. With the additional charges from today's events, Frank and Barbara are facing 25 to 30 years. At their age, it's effectively life sentences." The reality settled over the room. The architects of our family's dysfunction would never have power over us again. "There's more," Wallace continued. "The foundation Rose established. She specified that leadership positions should go to family members who demonstrated courage in speaking truth. Based on today's events, I'll be approaching several of you about board positions." Tyler raised his hand tentatively. "What about those of us who were complicit, who helped them even when we knew it was wrong?" Rose addressed that in her final letter. Wallace said, pulling out a document. She wrote, "Redemption isn't just for the innocent. It's especially for those who were caught in the web and choose to break free. Judge people not by their worst moments, but by their courage to change." As the afternoon wore on, the reunion transformed into something unexpected. Family members who'd been estranged for decades began reconnecting. Those who'd suffered under Frank and Barbara's manipulation found solidarity. Business cards were exchanged, job offers, extended invitations to visit issued. The reporters had enough material for a documentary, not just a news segment. Stephanie Martinez approached me one final time. This isn't how you imagined today going, is it? Actually, I said, looking around at my family, broken but healing, fractured but finally honest. It's exactly what my grandmother planned. She knew reconciliation without truth was meaningless. Today, we got both. What's next for the Brooks family? I thought about the question. Madison facing trial, our parents headed for prison, family secrets exposed, trust slowly rebuilding. We learn how to be a family without lies. It won't be easy, but for the first time in decades, it's possible. As the sun began setting through the glass walls, casting golden light across the river, family members started saying their goodbyes. But these weren't the stiff, formal farewells of past gatherings. People hugged, genuinely exchanged real phone numbers, made concrete plans to meet again. Tyler stood with a group of cousins who'd offered him jobs in their various businesses. Patricia was deep in conversation with Wallace about the foundation. David was providing legal guidance to those who needed it. You did it, Marcus said, joining me as I watched the transformed dynamics. You actually pulled off Rose's plan. She pulled it off, I corrected. I just followed her blueprint. She knew exactly how everyone would react, what would break the silence, what would forge new bonds. Still, it took courage to see it through. The venue slowly emptied until only the core group remained: Tyler, Patricia, Wallace, Marcus, and me. We stood before Grandmother Rose's portrait, each lost in our own thoughts. She saved us, Tyler said quietly, in the messiest, most painful way possible, but she saved us. Patricia nodded. From ourselves, from each other, from the lies we'd accepted as truth. Rose always did prefer difficult medicine that worked over comfortable placebos. Wallace revealed one final surprise. There's a letter for you, Cheyenne, to be opened after the reunion concluded. He handed me an envelope with my name in Grandmother Rose's handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. My dearest Cheyenne, if you're reading this, then you've done what I knew you could, brought truth to a family drowning in lies. It wasn't fair to put this burden on you, but you were the only one strong enough to bear it. The money was never the point. It was just bait to draw out everyone's true nature. What matters is what happens next. You've broken the cycle. Now help them build something better. Your parents will hate you for this. Madison may never forgive you, but Tyler will thrive. Patricia will lead, and the cousins who've been scattered will remember their family. You gave me hope in my final years, proof that my bloodline could produce integrity alongside ambition. Thank you for being the granddaughter I needed, even when it meant being the enemy they required. All my love, Rose. Tears blurred my vision as I shared the letter with the others. We stood together, survivors of a family war none of us had chosen, but all of us had needed to fight. Tomorrow would bring consequences, trials, testimony, the hard work of rebuilding. But today, in a glass pavilion by a river, the Brooks family had been reborn. Smaller, perhaps, definitely scarred, but finally truly free. Monday morning arrived with a media storm. The footage from yesterday's reunion had gone viral overnight. Family reunion becomes crime scene dominated headlines across Colorado and beyond. My phone buzzed incessantly with interview requests, which I forwarded to Wallace's office. We had bigger concerns than publicity. The courthouse was surrounded by news vans when I arrived for the emergency hearing. Frank and Barbara's latest arrest, combined with their bail violation and the attempted disruption of the reunion, had triggered an immediate judicial review. Inside, the corridors buzzed with lawyers, reporters, and curious onlookers. Tyler met me outside the courtroom, looking exhausted but resolute. Madison's lawyer wants to meet with you, he said. Claims she wants to make a deal. Let her lawyer talk to Wallace. I'm done negotiating with Madison. That's the thing. She fired her lawyer. She wants to represent herself. The news shouldn't have surprised me. Madison always believed she was the smartest person in any room. Representing herself in a criminal case was exactly the kind of arrogant mistake she'd make. Inside the courtroom, Judge Harrison, a stern woman with sharp eyes, reviewed the chaos of the past 24 hours. Frank and Barbara sat in orange jumpsuits, their attorney looking defeated before proceedings even began. Madison sat separately, papers spread before her, trying to project confidence despite her shaking hands. Detective Chen presented the evidence methodically: the reunion disruption, the parking lot arrest of Madison's hired accomplice, the break-ins at family members' properties, the violation of bail conditions. The security footage from the venue was particularly damning, showing Frank and Barbara attempting to access restricted areas before hijacking the sound system. Your Honor, the prosecutor stated, the defendants have shown complete disregard for the law and pose a significant flight risk and danger to witnesses. We request remand without bail for Frank and Barbara Brooks and increased bail conditions for Madison Brooks. Frank's lawyer made weak arguments about his client's age and health, but Judge Harrison wasn't moved. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, you were given the privilege of bail and immediately used it to intimidate witnesses and disrupt a lawful gathering. Bail is revoked. You'll remain in custody pending trial. Then came Madison's turn. She stood smoothing her wrinkled dress from a night in holding. Your Honor, I'd like to address the court directly. Ms. Brooks, I strongly advise against representing yourself. The charges against you are serious. I understand, Your Honor, but I have something important to say. Judge Harrison sighed. Proceed, but carefully. Madison turned to look at me directly. I want to make a full confession, not just about yesterday, but about everything. The elder abuse, the theft, the schemes against my sister. All of it. The courtroom fell silent. Even Frank and Barbara looked shocked. Their careful taught their daughter never to admit guilt, and here she was, abandoning everything they'd taught her. I was raised to believe that family meant protecting each other's lives. Madison continued, her voice gaining strength. That loyalty meant enabling abuse. That love was conditional on compliance. Yesterday, watching my grandmother's video, seeing my parents dragged away again, something finally broke inside me. She paused, wiping tears. I'd never seen her cry before. I helped my parents steal from our grandmother. I knew she was aware and scared, but I told myself it was justified because we were family. I tried to seduce my sister's boyfriend because I was jealous of her happiness. I hired someone to disrupt the reunion because I couldn't stand that Cheyenne had won. Miss Brooks, Judge Harrison interrupted, I must remind you that anything you say can be used against you. I know. That's why I'm saying it. I want to plead guilty to all charges and cooperate fully with the investigation. I have documents, recordings, evidence my parents don't know I kept. I want to testify against them. Frank erupted. You ungrateful little... Silence. Judge Harrison banged her gavel. Remove Mr. Brooks if there's another outburst. Barbara stared at Madison with pure venom. How dare you betray your family? Madison laughed bitterly. Family, you taught me to lie before I could properly write. You had me forge Grandma's signature when I was 12. You used me as a tool for your schemes my entire life. That's not family. That's organized crime with shared DNA. Wallace leaned over to whisper, This changes everything. With Madison's cooperation, the case against your parents becomes ironclad. The hearing continued with Madison formally entering guilty pleas to multiple charges. The prosecutor, initially skeptical, grew more interested as Madison detailed the evidence she could provide. By the end, a cooperation agreement was being drafted. Judge Harrison set Madison's sentencing for 6 weeks out contingent on her cooperation. Ms. Brooks, you're taking responsibility for your actions. That's commendable. But it doesn't erase what you've done. Be prepared for consequences. As court adjourned, Madison approached me. The bailiff stayed close, but she made no threatening moves. I don't expect forgiveness, she said quietly. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know, yesterday, seeing everyone stand up to Mom and Dad, seeing Tyler free and happy, I realized I had a choice. For once, I'm making the right one. Why now? I asked, genuinely curious. After everything? Because Grandma was right. The truth does set you free. Even if that freedom comes in a cell, it's better than the prison I've been living in." The bailiff led her away, and I was left processing this unexpected development. Madison, the golden child who'd perfected our parents' manipulation tactics, had chosen truth over family loyalty. It was a betrayal that might actually save her soul. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy intensified. Stephanie Martinez pushed through the crowd. "Cheyenne, can you comment on your sister's confession?" "I'm proud of Madison for choosing honesty," I said carefully. "It's never too late to break destructive patterns. My family is learning that truth, however painful, is the foundation for healing." That afternoon, I met with Wallace and Detective Chen to discuss the implications of Madison's cooperation. Her evidence was extensive: recordings of planning sessions, financial documents, even video of Frank coaching her on perjury techniques. "With this material," Chen explained, "we're looking at additional charges: RICO violations, tax evasion, multiple counts of fraud. Your parents aren't getting out of prison." "What about Madison's sentence?" "Depends on her cooperation level. She's looking at 5 to 10 years, possibly 3 with good behavior. Without the plea deal, it would have been 20. 3 years. Madison would emerge from prison at 29, still young enough to build a different life. The question was whether she'd use the chance or revert to old patterns. That evening, Tyler came to my apartment. He'd been staying with Patricia, slowly adjusting to life without our parents' toxic influence. We sat on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the mountains orange. "Do you think she meant it?" he asked. "Madison's confession?" "I don't know. She's lied so convincingly for so long, but something seemed different today." "I want to believe people can change," Tyler said. "I have to. Otherwise, what hope is there for any of us who were raised in that house?" His point resonated. We were all products of Frank and Barbara's dysfunction, but we weren't doomed to repeat it. Tyler was proving that daily pursuing therapy, education, and healthy relationships, maybe Madison could too. Wallace called with updates. The investigation had expanded based on Madison's evidence. Several of Frank's business associates were being arrested. An entire network of financial fraud was unraveling with our parents at the center. "Your grandmother suspected the scope," Wallace said. "That's why she was so specific about the reunion conditions. She knew it would force everything into the open." Over the following days, Madison made good on her promise. She met with prosecutors for hours, detailing every scheme she knew. Her memory was exceptional, providing dates, amounts, and methods that corroborated years of investigation. Patricia attended one of the sessions as a family representative. She reported back with amazement. "Madison held nothing back. She even confessed to things they hadn't asked about. It's like she's purging 26 years of poison." The family response was mixed. Some relatives saw Madison's confession as the ultimate betrayal of Frank and Barbara. Others viewed it as courageous truth-telling. The divide largely fell between those who'd benefited from Frank's schemes and those who'd suffered from them. A week after the hearing, I received a letter through Wallace. Madison's handwriting carefully penned from jail. "Cheyenne, I know I have no right to write to you, but I need to say things I should have said years ago. I hated you for escaping. Every day in that house after you left, I hated you for having the courage I lacked. You got out at 21. I'm 26 and just now finding my spine. Mom and Dad raised us to be weapons against each other. You refused to play? I perfected the game. Look where each path led. I'm not asking for forgiveness or even understanding. I'm asking for you to know that your example, choosing integrity over family approval, planted a seed. It took years to grow through all the concrete I'd poured over my conscience, but it finally broke through. I'll serve my time, I'll continue cooperating, and when I get out, I'll try to be someone Grandma wouldn't be ashamed of. Someone more like you. Your sister, if I can still claim that Madison. P.S. I'm sorry about Marcus. He seems wonderful. You deserve happiness." I read the letter 3 times, searching for manipulation tactics, hidden agendas, the usual Madison maneuvers, but it felt genuine, raw in a way her communications never were. Prison, or perhaps the simple act of truth-telling, had stripped away her facades. I showed the letter to Marcus that evening. He read it thoughtfully. "Do you want to respond?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to encourage her change. Part of me remembers every lie, every manipulation." "Both parts can be true," he said gently. "You can hope for her redemption while protecting yourself from further harm." The preliminary hearings for Frank and Barbara began the next week. They sat stone-faced as Madison testified via video link, detailing their crimes with clinical precision. When Barbara's lawyer tried to paint Madison as a vindictive daughter, she responded calmly. "I was vindictive. I was everything my parents taught me to be. That's why I'm here telling the truth they never could." The judge allowed the testimony, and Madison's evidence proved devastating. Combined with Grandmother Rose's documentation and the family testimony, the case was overwhelming. During a break, Frank managed to catch my eye. The rage that had defined him was gone, replaced by something hollow. He'd lost everything: wealth, freedom, family loyalty. Barbara, beside him, seemed to have aged a decade in days, her perfect facade crumbling into bitter lines. As Tyler and I left the courthouse together, he voiced what I was thinking. "They look so ordinary. All our lives they seemed like titans. Now they're just two angry people in jumpsuits." "That's all they ever were," I realized. "We just couldn't see it through the fear." That night, I made a decision. I wrote back to Madison, keeping it simple. "Madison, change is possible. Prove it through actions, not words. I'll be watching. Cheyenne." It wasn't forgiveness or acceptance. It was possibility. The same possibility Grandmother Rose had believed in when she set this all in motion. The chance for truth to break generational cycles, for redemption to bloom in unlikely soil. The legal reckoning continued, each hearing revealing more corruption, more victims, more tentacles of Frank's criminal enterprise. But alongside the ugliness, something else emerged. Family members started therapy. Cousins reconnected. The foundation Grandmother Rose established began taking shape, with Patricia as the inaugural director and Tyler joining the youth outreach program. From the ashes of the Brooks family empire, something newer and cleaner was growing. It would take years to fully bloom, but the seeds were planted. Truth had done its painful, necessary work. Now came the harder task: learning to live as a family built on honesty instead of lies. 3 weeks into the trial, the prosecution was building an airtight case against Frank and Barbara. Madison's testimony had been devastating, but today she was scheduled to face cross-examination. I sat in the gallery with Tyler and Patricia, watching our sister take the stand again via video link from the county jail. Barbara's new lawyer, a sharp woman named Victoria Chen, no relation to Detective Chen, stood to begin her questioning. "Ms. Brooks, you claim your parents taught you to lie and steal, yet you were an adult for most of these crimes. Why should the jury believe you're not simply trying to save yourself by blaming others?" Madison's response was measured. "Because I kept evidence of their instructions, videos, emails, recordings. I knew someday I might need proof that I wasn't the architect of these schemes." "How convenient. You participated in elder abuse while secretly documenting it." "Yes," Madison admitted. "I was a coward who wanted insurance. I'm not proud of it, but those recordings exist." Victoria Chen tried various angles of attack, but Madison remained steady, acknowledging her guilt while systematically detailing our parents' larger role. It was painful watching my sister dissect our family's criminal dysfunction with surgical precision. During the lunch break, Wallace pulled me aside. "The prosecution wants you to testify tomorrow. Are you prepared?" "Do I have a choice?" "You can refuse, but your testimony about finding the inheritance conditions and the reunion planning could seal the case." That evening, I prepared with the prosecutor, reviewing my statements, the timeline of events, the evidence I'd gathered. Marcus stayed with me, offering silent support as I relived the past 2 years of family warfare. The next morning, I took the stand. The courtroom was packed. Media, family members, curious public. Frank and Barbara sat at the defense table, their expressions unreadable. This was the first time we'd been this close since their arrest at the reunion. The prosecutor led me through the story chronologically. Grandmother Rose's death, the inheritance conditions, the escalating sabotage attempts. I kept my voice steady, focusing on facts rather than emotions. Then came the cross-examination. Frank's lawyer, Mitchell Stern, approached with predatory confidence. "Ms. Brooks, isn't it true you hadn't spoken to your grandmother for months before her death?" We exchanged letters regularly. Phone calls were difficult because my parents monitored her communications. "How convenient. Do you have these letters?" I smiled slightly. "Yes. Would you like me to read the one where she describes my father stealing her Social Security checks?" Stern pivoted quickly. "You claim your parents sabotaged your reunion planning. Do you have proof it wasn't simply vendors making mistakes?" The fake emails came from IP addresses traced to Millbrook. The writing style matched my parents' patterns. Digital forensics confirmed it. But not specifically to my clients' computers, to computers in their house used during times they were home. The questioning continued for 2 hours. Stern tried to paint me as a greedy daughter who'd manipulated a senile grandmother, but each attack fell flat against the mountain of evidence. When he suggested I'd coached Madison to lie for a lighter sentence, I laughed. Madison recorded those conversations years before any of this started. Unless you're suggesting I have a time machine, Judge Morrison had to call for order as ripples of laughter went through the gallery. Then Stern made a tactical error. "Isn't it true, Ms. Brooks, that you're enjoying the attention, the media coverage, the book deals being offered?" "I haven't accepted any book deals," I responded. "And if you think anyone enjoys watching their parents face life in prison, you understand even less about family than they do. Yet here you are testifying against them." "Yes, because they stole from a dying woman, because they tried to destroy anyone who opposed them, because they raised their children to be weapons instead of people. I'm testifying because someone needs to tell the truth in this family, and they never will." Barbara couldn't contain herself anymore. "You ungrateful brat, we gave you everything." Judge Morrison banged his gavel. "Mrs. Brooks, another outburst and you'll be removed." But the damage was done. Barbara's mask had slipped, showing the jury the rage that had terrorized her children for decades. During redirect, the prosecutor asked one final question. "Ms. Brooks, what do you hope comes from this trial?" I looked at my parents, then at Tyler in the gallery, at Madison on the video screen. "I hope it ends the cycles of abuse and theft that have plagued our family for generations. I hope those who committed crimes face justice, and I hope those who were caught in the web can finally break free." That afternoon, Tyler took the stand. His testimony was harder to watch than mine. He detailed years of physical abuse, the coercion to commit crimes, the constant fear. When he described Frank hitting him for refusing to forge documents, several jurors wiped their eyes. Frank's lawyer tried to discredit Tyler, suggesting he was lying for attention or money. Tyler's response was simple. "I don't want money. I want to sleep without nightmares. I want to stop flinching when someone raises their hand. I want to be free of them." The prosecution then presented Grandmother Rose's video testimonies. Watching her methodically detail the thefts, showing bank statements and forged signatures, was powerful. But the most damning moment came when she described catching Frank stealing her jewelry. "I confronted him," her recorded voice said. "He laughed and said I should be grateful he was keeping it in the family. When I threatened to call the police, he said no one would believe a confused old woman over her devoted son. That's when I started documenting everything." Patricia testified next, providing context about the family dynamics, the pattern of abuse spanning decades. She presented her own evidence, including emails where Barbara bragged about manipulating social services to avoid scrutiny. By the end of the week, the prosecution's case was overwhelming, but the defense had one more card to play. Victoria Chen announced, "The defense calls Barbara Brooks." I held my breath as my mother took the stand. She'd clearly been coached. Her hair styled conservatively, makeup subtle, wearing a modest suit that screamed respectable grandmother rather than the designer outfits she preferred. "Mrs. Brooks," her lawyer began, "tell us about your relationship with your mother-in-law, Masadi." Barbara launched into a performance worthy of an Oscar. She painted herself as the devoted daughter-in-law caring for an increasingly difficult elderly woman. Every theft became a misunderstanding, every manipulation an act of love. "Rose was confused in her final years," Barbara said, dabbing at fake tears. "She'd hide money and accuse us of stealing. We tried so hard to help her, but she turned our children against us with wild stories." It was masterful lying, each word calculated for maximum sympathy, but the prosecutor was ready for cross-examination. "Mrs. Brooks, you claim Rose was confused, yet her video testimonies seem quite lucid. How do you explain that?" "Good days and bad days," Barbara replied smoothly. "We probably caught her on good days." "I see. And the bank records showing withdrawals matching your shopping sprees." "Coincidence. I shop frequently." "With cash withdrawn from your mother-in-law's account?" "I often paid for her things and reimbursed myself." The prosecutor presented exhibit after exhibit, forged signatures, altered documents, security footage of Barbara at ATMs with Rose's cards. Barbara had an excuse for everything, each less believable than the last. Then came the killing blow. "Mrs. Brooks, do you recognize this recording?" Barbara's confident mask slipped as her own voice filled the courtroom. "The old bat finally kicked it. Time to collect what we're owed. Just need to keep Cheyenne away long enough to contest the will." The recording made by Madison during a family planning session continued with Barbara detailing schemes to steal the inheritance. The jury watched Barbara on the stand age 10 years in 10 seconds. That's taken out of context," she stammered. "What context makes calling your deceased mother-in-law the old bat acceptable?" Barbara had no answer. Her carefully constructed image shattered completely when Frank, unable to contain himself, shouted from the defense table, "Shut up, Barbara, you're making it worse." Judge Morrison had Frank removed from the courtroom, but the jury had seen enough. The devoted couple act was over, replaced by criminals turning on each other. The defense rested soon after knowing they'd lost. Closing arguments were scheduled for the following Monday. As court adjourned, I caught Barbara's eye. The woman who'd terrorized my childhood, who taught me that love was conditional and family was a weapon, looked small and defeated. Outside the courthouse, Madison's lawyer approached. "She wants to see you, in person before sentencing." "Why?" "She says there are things she needs to say face to face. The jail can arrange a visit if you're willing." I looked at Tyler, who shrugged. "Your choice. I'm not ready to see her yet." That weekend, I found myself in a sterile visiting room at the county jail. Madison entered in orange, her designer persona completely stripped away. She looked younger somehow, vulnerable in a way she'd never allowed before. "Thank you for coming," she said, sitting across the reinforced table. "You said you had things to say. I'm listening." Madison took a breath. "I've been thinking about Grandma's letter to you, about being the enemy they required. I think I was the enemy you required, the one who showed you what you could have become." The insight surprised me. Maybe we were just sisters dealt a bad hand. "I want to apologize. Not broadly, but specifically, for trying to seduce Marcus, for the fake emails, for every single time I chose to hurt you, because it was easier than standing up to them." "Why does this matter now?" "Because I'll be in prison for at least 3 years. When I get out, I'll be 29 or 30. I need to know if there's any possibility of, not forgiveness exactly, but maybe contact letters. The chance to prove I can be different." I studied my sister's face looking for the manipulation tactics I knew so well, but all I saw was fear and hope warring in her eyes. Prove it first, I said finally. Serve your time, get therapy, build a life that doesn't revolve around schemes and lies. Then maybe we can talk about letters. Madison nodded, tears flowing freely. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. As I left the jail, I realized the confrontation phase was ending. The truth was that justice was being served, and the family was irrevocably changed. Now came the harder part, figuring out what came next. Monday's closing arguments were anticlimactic after the week's testimony. The prosecutor summarized the evidence methodically, while the defense made weak appeals to sympathy that fell flat against the mountain of proof. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours. As the forewoman stood to read the verdicts, I held Tyler's hand. On the charge of elder abuse in the first degree, we find Frank Brooks guilty. On the charge of elder abuse in the first degree, we find Barbara Brooks guilty. The guilty verdicts continued: fraud, theft, conspiracy, racketeering. 43 counts between them, all guilty. Frank and Barbara stood stoically as their fate was read, but I saw Barbara's hands shaking, Frank's jaw clenching. Judge Morrison scheduled sentencing for the following month. As court officers prepared to lead my parents away, Frank turned to look at me one last time. The hatred in his eyes had dimmed to something else. Not remorse, but perhaps recognition. He'd played a game for decades and finally lost. Barbara didn't look back. She walked out with her head high, still performing for an audience that no longer cared. They were led to separate holding areas, their criminal partnership ended by conviction. Outside the courthouse, the media pressed for statements. Patricia spoke for the family. Justice has been served. Now we focus on healing and ensuring this never happens again. That evening, the extended family gathered at Patricia's house, not for a reunion, but for a quiet celebration of survival. Cousins who'd been estranged shared stories. Aunts and uncles made plans for regular gatherings. The Brooks family, purged of its poison, was slowly learning to be healthy. Tyler raised a glass of sparkling cider. He was avoiding alcohol after watching Frank's descent. To Grandma Rose, who loved us enough to save us from ourselves. We toasted our grandmother, the woman who'd orchestrated this entire revelation from beyond the grave. Her chess game was nearly complete, with only sentencing and aftermath remaining. As I drove home that night, Marcus asked, "How do you feel?" "Empty," I admitted. Not sad, not happy, just empty. Like I've been carrying this weight so long, I don't know how to walk without it. "You'll learn," he assured me. "Day by day you'll learn." The confrontation was over. The truth had won. But victory in a family war feels different from triumph in battle. There are no real winners when parents go to prison and siblings testify against each other. There's only survival and the hope that the next generation will do better. Madison would serve her time. Frank and Barbara would likely die in prison. Tyler would continue healing, and I would try to build something positive from the ashes of our dysfunction. Grandmother Rose had given us a painful gift, the chance to break free from generational trauma. Now we had to decide what to do with that freedom. The night before Madison's sentencing, I couldn't sleep. The past weeks had been a blur of legal proceedings, family meetings, and therapy sessions. Tomorrow would close another chapter in our family's reckoning. But tonight, my mind wandered to an unexpected place. What if we held another reunion? I called Patricia at what was probably too late an hour. "I have a crazy idea." At 11 p.m., all ideas are crazy. What is it? What if we hold the real reunion now, the one Grandma actually wanted? Family coming together in truth, not deception. Patricia was quiet for a moment. That's either brilliant or insane, maybe both. By morning, we'd sketched out a plan, not the elaborate affair I'd originally orchestrated, but something simpler, more genuine. We'd gather any family members who wanted to come share a meal and try to build something new from the wreckage. The emails went out Wednesday morning. You're invited to a family gathering this Sunday. No agenda, no drama, just family trying to reconnect. Potluck style, kids welcome. The responses varied. Some relatives immediately agreed, eager for a chance at normal family interaction. Others declined, still processing the trial's revelations. A few asked pointed questions about security and whether anyone dangerous would attend. Tyler volunteered his apartment complex's community room, neutral territory without the baggage of anyone's home. Plus, he said, it's got a kitchen and playground. Kids need space to run while adults talk. By Friday, we had 23 confirmations. Not the 40 plus from the original reunion, but the people who showed up would be there by choice, not obligation or greed. Sunday arrived with perfect autumn weather. Marcus and I arrived early with pasta salad and hope. Tyler was already there arranging tables with help from his new girlfriend Emma, a social worker he'd met in therapy group who understood complicated families. Patricia brought photo albums spanning generations. Thought we should remember the good times too, she explained, setting them on a side table. Families trickled in throughout the afternoon. Cousin Jenny arrived with her teenagers, who immediately gravitated toward Tyler's gaming setup. David brought his famous barbecue sauce and stories from his recent fishing trip. Aunt Helen, grandmother Rose's sister, who'd been estranged from Frank for decades, came with homemade pie and tears of joy. I never thought I'd see the family free from Frank's influence, Helen told me, gripping my hands. Rose would be so proud. The afternoon unfolded naturally. No formal program, no speeches, just family being family in the healthiest way we knew how. Which admittedly wasn't very polished, but it was honest. Children played in the playground while adults shared food and conversation. The talk wasn't all light. People discussed therapy, financial recovery from Frank's schemes, the challenge of explaining the situation to their kids. But it was real, supportive dialogue instead of the surface pleasantries and hidden agendas of past gatherings. Tyler surprised everyone by bringing out his guitar. I've been learning, he explained shyly. Music therapy helps with the anger. He played simple songs while kids sang along, his face peaceful in a way I'd never seen during our childhood. Emma watched him with quiet pride, understanding the courage it took for him to be vulnerable in front of family. Patricia had coordinated with Madison's lawyer for a video call from the jail. When we connected the laptop to the TV, Madison appeared on screen, looking healthier despite her circumstances. I know I don't deserve to be part of this, she began, but thank you for including me. I've been watching you all on the screen, and this is what family should look like. Various relatives spoke to her, some offering forgiveness, others simply acknowledging her presence. When Aunt Helen told Madison she was praying for her redemption, my sister broke down completely. I've started a recovery program here. Madison managed through tears for people raised in abusive homes. Turns out there are a lot of us trying to break cycles. As the sun began setting, David proposed a toast to absent friends and present family, to those we've lost to greed and those we've found through truth, to Grandmother Rose who loved us enough to force us into the light. We raised our cups, juice boxes, coffee mugs, water bottles, in the most genuine toast our family had ever shared. And to Cheyenne, Patricia added, who had the courage to see it through, to all of us, I corrected, for choosing to be here to try again, to believe family can mean something better than what we knew. As people began cleaning up stories emerged that I'd never heard. Helen told us about Rose as a young woman, fierce and independent, refusing to let Frank control her, even as he controlled everyone else. David shared how Frank had tried to blackmail him years ago, but he'd secretly recorded the attempt and kept Frank at bay. We all have our stories of survival, Patricia observed. Maybe it's time we shared them, learned from them, instead of hiding them. Jenny's teenager Sophie, who'd been quiet most of the day, suddenly spoke up. Is it weird that I'm glad everything happened? Like it sucks that people went to jail, but you all seem happier now. Her mother started to shush her, but I intervened. No, Sophie's right. It's okay to be glad the truth came out. Living in lies was killing us slowly. Prison is terrible, but it's honest about being terrible. As darkness fell and families prepared to leave, the atmosphere was markedly different from our arrival. Hugs lasted longer, promises to meet again sounded genuine, and children exchanged phone numbers with newfound cousins. Tyler pulled me aside as I packed up. This was what Grandma actually wanted, wasn't it? Not the fancy venue and catered food, but this. Us choosing to be family without being forced. I think so. The inheritance, the conditions, even the revelations. They were all just tools to get us here. Madison had stayed on the video call throughout, mostly silent but present. As we prepared to disconnect, she spoke once more. I'll be sentenced tomorrow, 3 to 5 years probably, but I wanted you all to know, this afternoon gave me hope, that there's something worth coming back to when I get out. Thank you for letting me watch. After everyone left, Patricia, Tyler Marcus, and I stood in the empty community room. The detritus of a successful gathering, empty plates, moved furniture, children's artwork forgotten on tables, surrounded us. We did it, Patricia said softly. We actually had a normal family gathering. Our version of norm, Tyler corrected with a smile. As we finished cleaning, I found a note left on the gift table. In a child's careful handwriting, "Thank you for making our family good again. Love, Sophie." I showed it to the others, and we stood there, 4 adults who'd survived a war we never chose, looking at evidence that the next generation might know peace. The original reunion, the one that exposed our family's crimes, had been a necessary demolition, but this Sunday gathering was the first act of rebuilding, smaller, simpler, but built on truth instead of lies. Monday morning came too soon. I sat in the courtroom for Madison's sentencing, Tyler beside me. Our sister entered in shackles, but her head was high, her expression calm. The judge reviewed her cooperation, her guilty pleas, the evidence she'd provided. The prosecutor acknowledged her assistance had been invaluable in convicting Frank and Barbara. "Ms. Brooks," the judge said, "you participated in serious crimes against a vulnerable elderly woman. Your cooperation doesn't erase that. However, it does demonstrate the possibility of redemption." He sentenced her to 4 years with possibility of parole in 3, with good behavior. Madison nodded, accepting the judgment without protest. Furthermore, the judge continued, "I'm recommending you for the prison's educational program. You have intelligence and skills that could serve legitimate purposes. Use this time to become someone your grandmother would recognize as family." As they led Madison away, she looked back at us and mouthed, "Thank you for testifying against her, for including her in yesterday's gathering, for not giving up entirely. I'd probably never know, but I nodded acknowledgement anyway." Outside the courthouse, Tyler and I stood in the crisp autumn air, processing another ending and beginning. "For 4 years," he said. "She'll be 30 when she gets out. Still young enough to build a different life. Will we help her?" I thought about yesterday's gathering, about Sophie's note, about the possibility of building something better from our dysfunction. If she proves she wants help, yes, but she has to earn it. That afternoon, I returned to work for the first time in weeks. My colleagues were supportive but curious, having followed the trial in the news. My boss called me in, not for criticism, but to offer the firm's employee assistance program. "What you've been through, we want to support you however we can." I appreciated the gesture, but declined. I had my own therapist now, someone who specialized in family trauma and could help me process the strange grief of winning a war against your parents. That evening, Marcus and I finally had a quiet dinner at home. No legal documents to review, no testimony to prepare, no family crises to manage. "So," he said over pasta, "what now?" "Now we learn how to be normal, whatever that means for us." "Was?" he repeated with a smile. "I like the sound of that. Even after seeing my girlfriend's family implode spectacularly on national television, Especially then, you stayed through the worst. You deserve to see what comes next. What does come next? I thought about the foundation taking shape under Patricia's leadership, Tyler's continued healing, Madison's incarceration and potential redemption, the family slowly reconstituting itself around truth instead of lies. Something better, I said finally. Something Grandmother Rose believed was possible even if she couldn't see it herself. We're going to build the family she deserved to have. The Sunday reunion had proven it was possible. 23 people choosing connection over isolation, truth over comfortable lies, hope over justified cynicism. It wasn't the grand event I'd originally planned, but it was real in a way that mattered more. As we cleared dinner dishes, my phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Foundation board meeting Thursday. Helen wants to join. She has ideas about elderly protection programs. Then, from Tyler, Emma's family wants to meet me, terrified but excited. Any advice? Even from Madison's lawyer. She wanted me to tell you she started journaling, processing everything. She's committed to the work. The Brooks family was scattered but not broken, damaged, but not destroyed. We were learning slowly and imperfectly how to be family without weapons, love without conditions, loyalty without enabling abuse. It would take years to fully heal, decades to completely break the patterns. But that Sunday afternoon in a community center with potluck dishes and children's laughter, we'd proven it was possible. The real reunion, the one Grandmother Rose had envisioned, had finally happened. Not with the fanfare of the original event, but with something more valuable, genuine connection born from shared truth and chosen hope. The war was over. The rebuilding had begun. And somewhere I imagined Grandmother Rose was finally at peace. 6 months after the trials ended, life had settled into something resembling normalcy, or at least our family's version of it. The sensational headlines had faded, replaced by the quiet work of rebuilding lives and relationships. I stood in the conference room of the Rose Brooks Foundation, watching Patricia lead a training session for volunteers. We'd launched 3 months ago with a mission to help elderly people protect themselves from financial exploitation by family members. The response had been overwhelming. Apparently, our family's public drama had encouraged others to speak up about their own situations. The key, Patricia was explaining, is documentation. Elder abuse thrives in silence and shame. We teach seniors how to protect their assets legally while maintaining family relationships when possible. Tyler sat in the back row taking notes. He joined the Foundation's youth outreach program, speaking at high schools about recognizing and escaping abusive family dynamics. His transformation continued to amaze me, from broken young man to advocate using his pain to prevent others. My phone buzzed with an email from Wallace. Estate final settlement ready for signature. Please come by this week. The inheritance Grandmother Rose had left me, the catalyst for everything, had remained largely untouched during the legal proceedings. Now it was time to decide what to do with it. That evening, Marcus and I attended Tyler's first major speaking engagement at Denver East High School. He stood before 200 teenagers, his hands steady, now voice clear. I was raised to believe that family meant accepting abuse, he told them, that love required you to participate in crimes, that speaking up was betrayal. I'm here to tell you that's a lie. Real family, real love protects you instead of using you. He shared his story with remarkable honesty, the violence, the coercion, the fear. But more importantly, he shared the escape, the healing, the possibility of something better. During the Q&A, a girl raised her hand. What if speaking up means losing your whole family? Tyler's response was gentle but firm. Sometimes losing toxic family is how you find your real family, the people who love you without hurting you. They're out there. You just have to survive long enough to find them. After the talk, several students approached Tyler privately. He listened to each one, offering resources, support, hope. Watching him, I saw shadows of the boy he could have been if our parents hadn't broken him, but I also saw the man he was becoming despite them. Emma met us afterward, pride evident in her expression. Their relationship had progressed carefully but genuinely. Two survivors learning to trust together. She'd been instrumental in Tyler's healing, her professional knowledge complementing personal understanding. "You did great," she told him. "Those kids needed to hear that." "I needed to say it," Tyler replied. "Every time I tell the story, it has less power over me." We went to dinner to celebrate, a normal family activity that still felt surreal. Conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and gentle teasing. These simple moments of connection were what Grandmother Rose had wanted to preserve. The next morning brought unexpected news. Detective Chen called to inform me that Frank had been hospitalized in prison. A heart attack, brought on by the stress of his new reality. He was stable but facing a long recovery. "Does Barbara know?" I asked. "She's been informed. They're in separate facilities, as you know. She didn't take it well." I sat with the information, unsure how to feel. The man who'd terrorized my childhood, who'd stolen from his dying mother, who'd tried to destroy me for inheriting what he felt entitled to, he was mortal after all. The monster of my youth was just an aging criminal facing consequences. I called Tyler to tell him. His response was complicated silence before, "I don't want him to die." Is that weird? After everything, I don't want him to die in prison. It's not weird, it's human. He's still our father, even if he failed at everything that title should mean. "Will you visit him?" "I don't know. Will you?" "I don't know either." We left it unresolved, another complexity in our journey toward healing. Some questions don't have clean answers. That afternoon, I met with Wallace to finalize the estate. The conference room where this all began felt smaller now, less intimidating. The numbers on the papers were substantial, but no longer felt like a burden. "Have you decided what to do with the funds?" Wallace asked. "Yes, I want to put half into the foundation as an endowment. The other half?" I paused, thinking of Madison in prison, Tyler rebuilding his life, cousins struggling with their own trauma. I want to create an education fund for family members, therapy, college, vocational training, whatever helps them build better lives. Wallace smiled. Rose would approve, turning inheritance into investment in the family's future. It's what she really wanted, wasn't it? Not just to expose the rot, but to create something healthy in its place. I believe so. She spoke often about redemption in her final months, not for Frank and Barbara specifically, but for the family line itself. As I signed the papers, I thought about Madison. Her letters from prison had become regular, each one revealing more genuine self-reflection. She'd enrolled in college courses, started facilitating a support group for women from abusive families, even began teaching financial literacy to prevent fellow inmates from falling into exploitation upon release. Her latest letter sat in my purse, waiting for a response. "Dear Cheyenne, today marks 6 months since my sentencing. I've been counting. Not the days until release, but the days of choosing differently. I taught a class yesterday on recognizing financial manipulation. The irony isn't lost on me. The woman who tried to seduce her sister's boyfriend teaching about healthy boundaries. But maybe that's exactly why I can teach it. I know all the tricks because I use them." Tyler wrote that his speaking engagements are going well. I'm proud of him. Strange to feel pride when I was part of what hurt him, but I do. Every person he helps heal is evidence that our family poison doesn't have to be terminal. I dream about Grandma sometimes, not nightmares, but conversations. In the dreams, she forgives me, but says, forgiveness isn't the point. The point is what I do with the time I have left. I'm trying to make it count. 3 more years minimum before parole. I'll be 29 or 30, young enough to start over, old enough to know better. Will there be room in the family for someone starting over? Your sister still and always, Madison. That evening, I finally wrote back. Madison, 6 months is a start. Keep going. The family you're wondering about. It's different now, smaller but stronger, built on truth instead of manipulation. There might be room for someone committed to that foundation. The education fund I'm establishing will be available to you upon release if you want to continue your studies. Consider it Grandma's final gift, the chance to become who you might have been. Tyler and I haven't decided about visiting Frank yet. When we do, I'll let you know. Take care of yourself. Cheyenne. The foundation's first major fundraiser took place the following month. Patricia had transformed a hotel ballroom into an elegant space highlighting our mission. Local politicians, business leaders, and social workers mingled with family members who'd found courage to attend. I gave a brief speech about Grandmother Rose's vision, not dwelling on our family's crimes, but focusing on the widespread issue of elder financial abuse. Statistics showed 1 in 10 seniors experience some form of exploitation, often by family members. Our foundation aimed to provide resources, legal support, and education to prevent these crimes. My grandmother believed in documentation, I concluded. She also believed in redemption. Our foundation honors both, helping seniors protect themselves while working to break the cycles that create abusers in the first place. The response exceeded expectations. Donations poured in, volunteers signed up, and several elderly attendees approached us about immediate help with their own situations. Jenny found me during the dessert reception. I need to tell you something. My mom, your Aunt Carol, she's been hiding bruising from Uncle Pete. After everything that's happened, she finally admitted he's been physical for years. Another family secret surfacing. We connected Carol with resources that night, including David's legal assistance and a safe place to stay. The foundation's work was deeply personal. Every elder we helped could be someone's grandmother Rose. As the evening wound down, Tyler performed a song he'd written, a haunting melody about breaking chains and finding light. There wasn't a dry eye in the room when he finished. "That was beautiful," an elderly woman told him afterward. "My grandson is trapped like you were. Can I bring him to one of your talks?" "Of course," Tyler assured her. "Escaping is possible. I'm living proof." 3 weeks later, Frank died. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Complications from his heart attack, a stroke during the night, gone before prison medical could respond. Barbara had been notified but reportedly refused to acknowledge the news, insisting the guards were lying to manipulate her. Tyler and I met at a coffee shop to process the news. Neither of us cried, but the grief was real, not for the father we'd lost, but for the father we'd never had. "Should we have visited?" Tyler asked. "I keep thinking we should have visited." To say what, forgive him, let him manipulate us one more time. Maybe just to say goodbye, to close that chapter properly. We sat with our complicated feelings. Frank Brooks, abuser thief father, was dead at 62, his legacy a cautionary tale, and 2 children determined to be nothing like him. The funeral was small. The prison released his body to us as next of kin. We arranged a simple service, partly for closure, partly because even monsters deserve basic dignity in death. Patricia came a few cousins, Tyler's Emma and Marcus. Madison attended via video link from prison, her face unreadable on the laptop screen. The minister briefed on our situation, spoke generically about redemption and choices. When he asked if anyone wanted to speak, silence stretched until Tyler stood. "Frank Brooks was my father," he said simply. "He taught me through opposition who I never want to be. His life was a manual on how not to treat family. I hope he finds the peace in death that he never allowed others in life." I added only, "May the cycles he perpetuated end with him." Madison spoke from the screen. "I'm sorry for following in your footsteps for so long, Dad. I'm sorrier that you never found a different path. Rest now." We buried him beside his parents, though Grandmother Rose would probably have objected. Barbara wasn't permitted to attend. She'd attacked her transport guards when they'd tried to bring her, screaming that we'd murdered Frank to steal his non-existent fortune. A week after the funeral, a package arrived at my apartment. Inside were photos and documents Frank had hidden in his cell. Pictures of us as children before the poison took hold, birthday cards we'd made him that he'd inexplicably saved, a father-daughter dance photo from my middle school years. Among them was an unsent letter dated the day before his heart attack. Cheyenne, I know you hate me. You should. I taught you that love was transaction, family was weapon, trust was weakness. I was wrong. Your mother says I'm getting soft, but dying men see clearly. You escaped what I tried to make you. That's good. Tyler, too. Even Madison might make it out. I won't ask forgiveness. Just wanted you to know you were right to run, right to expose us, right to choose better. Your father failed. I showed the letter to Tyler. We sat with it, two adult children trying to reconcile this glimpse of awareness with the man who'd terrorized us. Was it genuine? A final manipulation? Did it matter? I think Tyler said eventually, we take it as truth and move on. Whether he meant it or not, we can choose to believe he had one moment of clarity. For our sake, not his. The Foundation's work continued. We'd helped dozens of families in 6 months, prevented numerous exploitation attempts, and educated hundreds about protecting elderly relatives. Tyler's speaking engagements expanded to colleges and community centers. Patricia managed operations with remarkable efficiency, turning our family's pain into public service. Madison's letters evolved from apologies to updates on her own advocacy work in prison. She'd started a newsletter about financial literacy, taught classes on recognizing manipulation, and mentored younger inmates from similar backgrounds. Barbara remained in prison, increasingly divorced from reality. Reports suggested she'd constructed an elaborate fantasy where she was a wronged socialite imprisoned by jealous enemies. The other inmates avoided her, finding her delusions disturbing even by prison standards. 1 year after the reunion that changed everything, we held another gathering. This time at the Foundation's new office, a bright space donated by a supporter who'd followed our story. 30 family members attended, including some who'd initially taken Frank's side but had since recognized the truth. Aunt Helen, now a Foundation board member, raised a toast to Rose Brooks, who loved us enough to save us from ourselves, to Cheyenne, who had courage we didn't, to Tyler and Madison, who proved change is possible, to all of us for choosing to be here. We shared a meal, told stories, and planned for the future. Children played in the corner we designated as a kids' area. Teenagers listened to Tyler explain how he'd escaped. Adults discussed the Foundation's expansion plans. I stepped onto the balcony for air and found Patricia already there. We did it, she said. We actually rebuilt the family. Different than before. Smaller in some ways, stronger in others. Better, Patricia said firmly. Honest, real, worth saving. Inside, laughter erupted over some story David was telling. Through the window, I could see Tyler teaching Cousin Jenny's kids a card game, normal family activities we'd never had under Frank and Barbara's reign. My phone buzzed with a notification from Madison. Watching the live stream. Thank you for including me. 2 more years. I'll earn my place back. I texted back, keep doing the work. We'll be here. As evening fell and families began departing, Sophie, Jenny's daughter, who'd left the note at our first gathering, approached me. Aunt Cheyenne, I'm writing a school essay about heroes. Can I write about you? I'm not a hero, Sophie. I just did what needed doing. That's what heroes do, though. The necessary thing even when it's hard. From the mouths of babes. I hugged her, this next generation growing up in truth instead of lies, in safety instead of fear. Marcus drove us home through quiet Denver streets. We'd set a wedding date finally, a small ceremony next spring with our chosen family, the people who'd stood by us through the implosion and rebuilding. Proud of you, he said, simply taking my hand. For what? For all of it. Exposing the truth, surviving the fallout, building something better. Your grandmother would be proud too. I thought about Grandmother Rose, the woman who'd set all this in motion with her posthumous chess game. She'd known her son was irredeemable, suspected her daughter-in-law was too far gone, but believed the grandchildren could be saved if someone broke the cycle. She'd been right. Tyler was healing, speaking truth, building a healthy relationship. Madison was incarcerated but transforming, using her intelligence for good instead of manipulation. And I'd found my purpose in ensuring no other grandmother suffered what Rose had endured. The Brooks family empire built on lies had fallen. In its place rose something smaller but genuine, a foundation helping others, survivors supporting each other, truth replacing generations of deception. It wasn't the reunion any of us had imagined. It was better. It was real. And somewhere I knew Grandmother Rose was finally at peace. 2 years had passed since Frank's death when Madison walked out of prison on a crisp September morning. Tyler and I waited by my car, watching the gates that had held our sister for 3 years. Neither of us was sure how to feel. Hopeful, cautious, both. She emerged looking smaller somehow, carrying a single bag of belongings. The designer clothes and perfect makeup were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. Her face showed the years, but her eyes held something new. Clarity. Madison stopped a few feet from us, uncertain. "You came." "We said we would," Tyler replied. The ride back to Denver was quiet at first. Madison stared out the window like she'd never seen highways before. Finally, she spoke. "Mom's getting worse. The prison counselor told me. Full psychotic break last month. She believes Dad's still alive, that you're all imposters trying to steal her fortune." "There is no fortune," I said. "I know. She doesn't. Can't. Won't." Madison shifted in her seat. "I tried writing her for 2 years. Every letter came back unopened. The counselor says she's built a complete alternate reality where she's the victim of a massive conspiracy." "Are you okay with that?" Tyler asked gently. "I have to be. I can't save someone who doesn't want saving. I learned that in group therapy." She paused. "The same way you couldn't save me until I wanted it." We'd arranged for Madison to stay at a transitional house for former inmates, a foundation partner that specialized in helping women rebuild after incarceration. She'd have her own room, access to counseling and support finding work. "I know you wanted to help with housing," Madison said as we pulled up to the modest building, "but I need to do this part myself. Earn my way back, not slide into comfort." Over the following weeks, Madison threw herself into rebuilding. She got a job at a nonprofit teaching financial literacy. Her criminal record actually helped providing credibility when warning about scams. She attended therapy religiously, joined a support group, and slowly began reconnecting with family members willing to give her a chance. The first family dinner with Madison was awkward. Patricia hosted, keeping it small, just her, Tyler, Emma, Madison, Marcus, and me. Conversation stuttered and started, everyone hyper-aware of the history in the room. Finally, Madison addressed it directly. "I know you're all waiting for me to revert, to scheme or manipulate or fall back into old patterns. I'm waiting for it too, honestly. Every day I wake up terrified I'll be who I was. But so far, I keep choosing differently." "That's all any of us can do," Tyler said. "Choose differently each day." Emma Ever, the therapist, guided us towards safer topics. By dessert, we'd achieved something approaching normal conversation. It was a start. The foundation had grown significantly during Madison's incarceration. We now operated in 3 states, had a staff of 12, and had helped hundreds of families. The annual fundraiser had become a major social event, drawing support from across Colorado. At this year's gala, Madison attended as a volunteer, not a guest. She worked the registration table, greeting attendees with genuine warmth instead of calculated charm. Watching her, I saw glimpses of who she might have been if raised differently. Tyler gave the keynote speech that night. At 28, he'd become a recognized advocate for abuse survivors. His book, Breaking the Chain, would be published next month. He spoke eloquently about transformation, healing, and the power of choosing differently. People ask if I've forgiven my parents, he said. The answer is complicated. I've released the hold they had on me. I've refused to continue their patterns, but forgiveness. That's a journey, not a destination. Some days I'm closer than others. In the audience, I spotted several familiar faces. Cousins who'd rebuilt their lives, aunts who'd escaped toxic relationships, young people Tyler had mentored. Each represented a victory over generational trauma. Patricia announced the Foundation's latest initiative, a residential program for elderly abuse survivors, offering both emergency shelter and long-term support. The facility would be named Rose House, honoring the woman whose final gambit had saved so many. During the reception, Wallace, now a Foundation board member, pulled me aside. "There's something you should know. Barbara's lawyer contacted me. She's been diagnosed with dementia accelerated by her psychological break. The prison wants to transfer her to a medical facility." "What do they need from us?" "Nothing legally, but ethically. She has no one else. Madison's rebuilding her life, Tyler's finally free, and you've carried enough burden. Yet someone should make decisions about her care." I found Tyler and Madison shared the news. We stood together, three siblings bound by trauma and survival, facing another crossroads. "I can't," Tyler said immediately. "I'm sorry, but I can't have her in my life again, even medically." Madison nodded. "I understand. I'm not ready either. Maybe not ever." Which left me. The daughter who'd escaped first exposed the truth and built something from the ashes. The one with the most distance and perhaps the most capacity for clinical compassion. "I'll handle it," I decided. Not as a daughter, but as a human being, ensuring another human being gets proper care. Nothing more. We arranged for Barbara to be transferred to a secure memory care facility. I signed papers, made decisions, but didn't visit. She wouldn't know me anyway. In her mind, I was part of the conspiracy keeping her from her imagined wealth and reuniting with her deceased husband. 6 months later at Tyler's book launch, our rebuilt family gathered in full force. The bookstore overflowed with supporters, media, and family members who'd chosen truth over comfortable lies. Madison had been promoted to program director at her nonprofit. She spoke briefly about her brother's courage in sharing their story. Tyler survived what would have destroyed most people. Then he turned that survival into a lifeline for others. I'm proud to be his sister. Jenny's daughter, Sophie, now a confident teenager, had indeed written her school essay about heroes. She'd won a district competition and read excerpts at the launch. Her thesis was simple: heroes aren't people without fear. They're people who act despite it. As Tyler signed books, I noticed how different we all looked from that chaotic reunion 4 years ago. The fear was gone, replaced by something harder to define. Peace, maybe, or at least the absence of constant vigilance. Marcus and I had married in a small ceremony the previous spring. Patricia officiated, Tyler played guitar, and Madison, newly released, had attended via special permission. Even Aunt Helen had flown in from Florida, declaring it the first Brooks family wedding not poisoned by agenda or manipulation. The Foundation's work continued expanding. We'd partnered with law enforcement to train officers in recognizing elder abuse. Tyler's advocacy had led to stronger legislation protecting vulnerable adults. Madison's financial literacy programs had prevented dozens of seniors from falling victim to scams. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in our daily lives. We could have dinner without checking for ulterior motives. Phone calls didn't require defensive strategies. Holidays were planned based on desire to gather, not obligation or manipulation. "We actually did it," Patricia marveled at one Sunday dinner. "We're a functional family, imperfect but functional." Took long enough," Tyler said with a grin that would have been impossible during our childhood. Madison raised her glass of sparkling water. She'd decided alcohol wasn't wise given our genetic predispositions. "To Grandmother Rose, who loved us enough to blow everything up." To Cheyenne, who had the courage to light the fuse. To Tyler, who showed us survival was possible. To everyone who chose truth over comfortable lies. To second chances, I added, and third chances, and as many chances as it takes to get it right. We toasted this family forged in the crucible of exposed secrets and hard-won redemption. Outside the restaurant window, Denver sparkled in the evening light, a city that had given us refuge when we needed to escape, and a foundation when we were ready to rebuild. Barbara passed away on a rainy Tuesday, never recovering from her dementia, never acknowledging the truth of what she'd done. We held a small service, dignified but brief. Madison spoke a single line, "May you find the peace in death you couldn't accept in life." Frank and Barbara were gone, their toxic legacy buried with them, but their children lived on proof that cycles could be broken, that dysfunction wasn't destiny, that families could be rebuilt on foundations of truth instead of lies. The Rose Brooks Foundation continued growing, helping families across the country. Tyler's book became a bestseller, opening conversations about family abuse that had long been silenced. Madison developed a curriculum for teaching financial literacy to at-risk youth, preventing the next generation from falling into exploitation. I stood in my office one afternoon looking at the photo wall, pictures from the Sunday potluck reunion Tyler's wedding to Emma Madison's graduation from her counseling certification program, Patricia receiving a state award for the foundation's work. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Aunt Cheyenne, I got into pre-law following in Uncle David's footsteps. Thanks for showing me that justice matters." The next generation was rising unmarked by our scars, but informed by our journey. They would know their history, not to be bound by it, but to be freed from repeating it. That evening, Marcus and I walked along the river path where I'd once run to escape phone calls from home. Now it was just a pleasant place to exercise, no longer haunted by memories of manipulation and fear. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, knowing the anniversary of that first fateful reunion was approaching. I considered the question. Regret for the pain. Yes, regret for the necessity of exposure sometimes. Regret for the outcome never. I regret that it took Grandma dying to break the silence. I regret that Frank and Barbara couldn't choose differently. I regret the years we all lost to their toxicity, but the actual revelation, the truth-telling no. That was the only way to save who could be saved. We walked in comfortable silence, two people who'd weathered a storm together and emerged stronger. Behind us, the sun set over the mountains. Ahead, the path stretched clear and open, no longer darkened by family secrets or generational trauma. The Brooks family story had become one of redemption rather than dysfunction. Not perfect. Healing isn't clean or complete, but honest, real, worth saving. Grandmother Rose had orchestrated a painful resurrection. From the ashes of lies and manipulation had risen truth, support, and genuine connection. Her gambit had worked, though the cost was high and the journey brutal. But we'd survived. More than that, we'd thrived. And in helping others escape their own family dysfunction, we'd turned our pain into purpose, our trauma into triumph. The cycle was broken. The future was ours to write. And somewhere in whatever came after, Rose Brooks was smiling. 5 years after Madison's release from prison, I stood in the garden of Rose House, our residential facility for elder abuse survivors. The October sun warmed my face as I watched residents tend to their flower beds, small acts of growth and agency after lives marked by exploitation. Mrs. Chen's tomatoes won. Tyler announced, holding up a prize-winning specimen from our harvest festival. At 33, he radiated the peace that comes from deep healing. His second book had just been optioned for a documentary series that would help even more families recognize and escape abuse. Madison emerged from the main building, tablet in hand, coordinating with staff about the afternoon's financial literacy workshop. She'd earned her master's degree in social work and now served as Rose House's program director. The transformation from manipulator to protector had been hard-won, but genuine. "Oh, it's family meeting in 5i," she called out. "Patricia has news." We gathered in the community room, the same space where we held our first real reunion years ago, now transformed into the heart of Rose House. Patricia entered with Wallace and a younger woman I didn't recognize. "Everyone, this is Elena Martinez," Patricia began. "She's a documentary filmmaker who's been following our story. She has a proposal." Elena stepped forward, nervous but determined. "I've spent 2 years researching your family's journey. With your permission, I'd like to create a comprehensive documentary. Not sensationalizing the crimes, but showing how families can break generational cycles." We exchanged glances. Media attention had died down over the years, allowing us to work without scrutiny. Did we want to reopen those wounds? Or what would this involve? Madison asked, ever protective now of the peace we'd built. "Oh, interviews with willing family members, footage of the foundation's work. Most importantly, stories from families you've helped. The focus would be on healing and prevention, not the sensational aspects." Tyler spoke first. "I think Grandma would want us to, if it helps even one family recognize the patterns before it's too late." We discussed it for an hour, weighing privacy against potential impact. Finally, we voted. Unanimous agreement to participate with careful boundaries about what we would and wouldn't discuss. As the meeting concluded, Marcus texted that he was running late to pick up our daughter from preschool. Yes, we'd added to our chosen family. Little Rose Marie, named for the grandmother she'd never meet, but whose legacy shaped her world. Mommy!" 4-year-old Rosie burst through the door ahead of Marcus' pigtails flying. I drew our family tree at school. She proudly displayed her artwork, a sprawling tree with careful labels. "That's Uncle Tyler and Aunt Emma and baby James. That's Aunt Madison. That's Aunt Patricia. That's Great Aunt Helen." The tree continued branches, spreading wide with chosen family blood relatives who'd stayed, and the new generation growing up in truth. At the roots, she'd carefully written, "Great Grandma Rose," with flowers all around. "My teacher said it's the biggest family tree in class," Rosie announced. "I told her it's 'cause we chose most of them ourselves." Out of the mouths of babes again. That evening, we held our monthly family dinner at Patricia's house. These gatherings had evolved from cautious attempts at connection to genuine celebrations of our rebuilt bonds. Sophie, now a law student, debated legal theory with David. Jenny's younger kids played with Rosie, and Tyler's baby James. Madison's partner, another survivor she'd met in therapy, helped Emma in the kitchen. "Remember when we couldn't be in the same room without checking for exits?" Tyler mused, bouncing James on his knee. "Now look at us," Madison added. "Boring and stable. Who would have thought—" Stable, yes. Boring, never," Patricia corrected. "We're running a multi-state foundation, changing laws, saving lives. We just do it without the drama now." After dinner, Elena interviewed us as a group camera, capturing the easy interaction so different from our past. She asked thoughtful questions about transformation, forgiveness, and building healthy relationships after trauma. "People want to know if we've forgiven our parents," I said, addressing the camera. "The answer isn't simple. We've forgiven ourselves for surviving however we could. We've released their hold on our lives, but some acts create consequences that outlive forgiveness. What matters is that we stop the cycle." Madison added, "I spent years believing manipulation was strength and honesty was weakness. Prison gave me time to unlearn those lessons. Now I teach others what healthy relationships actually look like. The irony isn't lost on me, but maybe that's why I can teach it effectively." Tyler spoke about his children. "Every day I parent them, I choose the opposite of what was done to us. When James frustrated me yesterday, I took a breath and remembered. He's allowed to have feelings. He's allowed to make mistakes. He's allowed to be a child. These seem basic, but for us, they're revolutionary acts." The interview continued past Rosie's bedtime. I tucked her in at Patricia's guest room, her little face serious as she asked, "Mommy, why did great-grandma Rose have to die for everyone to be happy?" How to explain generational trauma to a 4-year-old? She didn't die to make us happy, sweetheart. She died because she was very old. But before she died, she made sure we could all find our way to being a healthy family. Sometimes people need help seeing the truth. Like when you helped me see that vegetables actually taste good. I laughed. Something like that, but more complicated. I wish I could have met her. You did meet her in a way. Every time Uncle Tyler helps someone escape a bad situation, that's great-grandma Rose. Every time Aunt Madison teaches someone to protect their money, that's her too. When Aunt Patricia runs Rose's house, when I make sure elderly people are safe, we're all carrying pieces of her forward. Rosie considered this with preschooler solemnity. So she's not really gone. No, baby, the best parts of her live on in what we do. Satisfied, Rosie snuggled into sleep. I returned to find the adults viewing old photos Patricia had digitized. Pictures from before everything went wrong. Young Frank and Barbara smiling at their wedding. Baby pictures of Madison, Tyler, and me. Grandmother Rose holding infant me, her face full of hope. This is what generational trauma steal, Elena observed. The potential for normal happiness. But we got it back, Emma said firmly. Differently than expected, but we got it back. The filming continued for 6 months. Elena captured Tyler speaking to packed auditoriums, Madison training social workers, the foundation's daily work, and our ordinary family moments. She interviewed cousins, aunts, and even some of Frank's former victims who'd found healing through our programs. When Barbara's medical facility contacted us about her final decline, we faced another decision. She no longer recognized anyone lived entirely in her fantasy world where she was a wrong socialite. Did we owe her anything in her final days? I'll go, Madison decided. Not for her, but for me, to see that she has no power left. She returned from the visit, shaken but resolved. She didn't know me, kept calling me servant and demanding I fetch her jewels. The woman who terrorized our childhood is gone. What's left is just sad. Barbara died 2 weeks later. We held another small service, choosing compassion over justified indifference. Madison spoke again. You were a cautionary tale, but you were also a human being. May the pain you caused end with you. Elena's documentary premiered at the Denver Film Festival. Watching our story on screen was surreal. Years of pain and growth compressed into 90 minutes. But she'd captured something essential, the possibility of breaking cycles, the power of truth, the hope of redemption. The audience response was overwhelming. During the Q&A, survivor after survivor shared their own stories of family dysfunction and the inspiration they'd drawn from ours. The Foundation's website crashed from traffic as people sought resources. This is what Grandma wanted, Tyler whispered. Not just to save us, but to save others through us. The documentary went on to win several awards and stream nationally. More importantly, it sparked conversations in living rooms across the country about family abuse, elder exploitation, and the possibility of healing. Rose House expanded to 3 locations. The foundation partnered with universities to research prevention strategies. Tyler's speaking engagements went international. Madison developed a certification program for financial abuse prevention specialists. I oversaw it all while raising Rosie to understand that family meant love, not obligation, support, not manipulation. On Grandmother Rose's birthday, we always gathered at her grave. This year, the crowd was larger. Staff volunteers, families we'd helped, and our own growing clan. Rosie placed flowers while Tyler's son James toddled around collecting fallen leaves. Your plan worked, I said quietly to the headstone, though I suspect you knew it would. You played the long game, sacrificing your own peace for our eventual freedom. We've tried to be worthy of that sacrifice. Madison stepped forward. I was your biggest disappointment for so long, but you saw possibility even in me. Thank you for believing we could be better than our worst moments." Tyler added, "You gave us the hardest gift, truth. We've tried to pass it on responsibly." Patricia concluded, "Your legacy isn't just in what you exposed, but in what grew from that exposure. Rest knowing your family finally became what you always hoped we could be." As we walked away, Rosie tugged my hand. "Mommy, will you tell me a bedtime story about Great Grandma Rose?" "Of course, sweetheart. What kind of story?" "The kind where the good guys win, but it takes a really long time and is very hard, but then everyone lives happily ever after." I smiled. "I know just the story." That night, as I tucked Rosie in, I told her an age-appropriate version of our family's journey. How Great Grandma Rose loved her family enough to make sure they faced the truth. How Uncle Tyler and Aunt Madison had to learn to be strong. How Mommy had to be brave even when scared. How we all learned that real family protects instead of hurts. "And did everyone live happily ever after?" Rosie asked sleepily. "We lived truthfully ever after," I corrected gently, "which is even better than happily, because when you live in truth, happiness has room to grow." She smiled satisfied and drifted off to sleep. I sat watching her peaceful face, this child who would never know the fear of footsteps in the hallway, the confusion of conditional love, the pain of family as weapon. She would grow up surrounded by chosen family blood relatives who'd earned their place and the absolute certainty that she was loved without price. Marcus found me there, lost in thought. "Penny for them." "Just thinking about cycles, how Grandma broke them for us and now we keep them broken for her." He wrapped his arms around me. "Think she'd be proud." I thought of the foundation helping thousands, Tyler's advocacy changing laws, Madison's redemption story inspiring other former criminals, Patricia's leadership transforming trauma into purpose. I thought of cousins, reconnected aunts, empowered children growing up safely. I thought of Sunday dinners without fear, holidays without manipulation, love without conditions. "Yeah," I said softly, "I think she'd be proud." Family isn't about blood, but about loyalty, respect, and genuine love. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money, but the strength to stand up for yourself and create the family you deserve. Truth may shatter comfortable lies, but from those shards we can build something real, lasting, and worthy of passing on. Breaking generational cycles is painful, messy work, but it's the greatest gift we can give to those who come after us. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and personal truth? What would you do if exposing lies meant saving future generations? Share your thoughts below, and if this story touched you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about families who chose truth over comfortable lies. Remember, you deserve a family that protects rather than harms, that celebrates rather than manipulates. Thank you for joining Cheyenne's journey. May you find the courage to write your own story of freedom.